Call the meeting to order. We have the item number 2 is the addition to the agenda. Was there anything to add or delete? Hearing none, we'll move on. Item number 3, the approval of the agenda. So good. Item number 4, declaration of any conflict of interest. If any counselor is seen, if they can declare it now. If not, when the item comes up, please declare any conflict. Item number 5, presentations, 5.1. Director's report, Ashley Rhino, Senior Safety Coordinator. Ashley, would you like to take a seat, please? Go ahead, your mic is on, Ashley.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for having me here this morning. The report reflects January to December of 2019. So in May of 2019, I was hired as a senior safety coordinator replacing Doris Landry. And we had a 6-week transition between coordinators, which allowed both clients and community partners to adapt. That transition appeared to go very smoothly and worked well for both myself, Doris, and clients and community partners. So we're very thankful for that transition, and we still remain committed to the intervention and prevention pieces of the program as we move forward. In 2019, we had 50 referrals made to the program. 6 were from the RCMP, 9 were self-referrals, 23 were from friends, family, and community partners, and 12 from agencies and individuals within the town of Yarmouth. Of the 50, 30 became clients. 5 to 7 would be considered high risk. So that's somebody living in their home, that's by themselves, are in a vulnerable situation. And throughout the year, I carried approximately 10 of those per month on my caseload, and they fluctuated accordingly. The program did 1,116 visits in 2019. 418 of those were home visits and 698 were phone visits. And we completed 155 vials of life for the 2019 years, and that actively remains a large and important piece of our program. As people become aware, I'm seeing bigger numbers of those vials being distributed to different groups as they're aware of the program. The challenges the program sees are similar to what you may have heard from Doris in the past, and still remain. Seniors living on a fixed income. So with the cost of living increasing, affordable and safe housing is an issue, and the accessibility to that. With wait times being increased for long-term care facilities, we're seeing strain being put on both the client and the caregiver. So we have looked at a more caregiver focus as to what that may entail and how to best support them and the client in the home so that they're getting the care and the support that they need. Food and heat insecurity remain an issue. So with lack of transportation for medical appointments and grocery shopping and errands, that food and heat insecurity can increase because your cost of transportation is increasing. This year there was a recognition that there was a gap with the fuel bank. Their coordinator passed away in the summer, so there was nobody to run it. We brought that forth at a Choice Housing meeting, and we were able to fill the gap for this year, and the Tri-County Women's Center has worked diligently with Reverend Bill Newell to fill that gap. So they're the temporary home for the fuel bank. Loneliness and dementia are still 2 big ones that we see, and I see an increasing number of dementia happening more and more. And loneliness is increasing as well, especially in the winter months. The shorter days, the longer nights, the ability to get from point A to point B being an issue. So loneliness is most definitely increasing. The prevention piece of the program, we completed 16 presentations this year throughout the municipality of Yarmouth. And we continued the Lunch and Learn series out of the South Ohio Community Hall. And the final one of those, there was 70 people present. So that was the largest number they had seen at one of those. So those are still being received well. There's still an active request for presentations on varying topics. So that is still being presented and helps with that prevention piece of the program. We did our first caregiver wellness retreat back in May to help with that caregiver, to give them a day to just focus on themselves. And we had 30 people in attendance, and it was received very, very well. In October, we did our 50 Plus Expo at PEB, and we had 83 people in attendance. And that was also received very well with a great feedback from the community and the attendees. And our partnership with council and municipal staff and the RCMP is still vital to the program and the success of the program. So I thank you for allowing that to continue. It definitely makes the day-to-day that much better. At the end of the report, there's a couple client and community partner testimonials that they have allowed me to include in the report to just speak to the success of the program and what that looks like. So I thought that was nice to have there as and important to see that there is good work being done and needs are being met. Is there any questions?
Okay. Is there any questions from council to Ashley pertaining to her report? Councillor Allen, go ahead.
Again, I would just like to know, again, I've been told before, what goes into the Vial of Life?
So the Vial of Life has 2 papers in it. So the first paper has the emergency contact information. So it will have the client's name, it will have their phone number, their address, it'll have their next of kin, their health card number, and then it provides 2 emergency contacts to contact in an emergency. The second page of the Vial of Life has all their medications that they're taking, both prescribed and over the counter. And it's meant to be kept up to date, so it's important to update that. It also speaks to any allergies they have. It speaks to any medical conditions they've had, are currently dealing with, or in the past that may change the way they're cared for in an emergency. And it also states where their medication is in their house, so that when they open it, they know that their medication's by their bedside table. EHS or RCMP can take it with them, and it moves forward.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Councillor Cushion.
Thank you, Ashley. A very, very good report. And one thing I did notice on there is the loneliness and dementia, also still a predominant issue seen by a coordinator. I would say, as I was going through life to this point, I didn't realize how lonely seniors can get. You know, but now that I'm getting to the age where I have a mother-in-law who lives by herself, and she's very active, and she's full of energy, but when it comes time to prepare her meal in the evening when there's nobody around, she gets lonely. Mm-hmm. And it's just something so that's a very important thing of how to try to handle something like this. So I'm glad you mentioned it into your report, but keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Oh, Councillor Cunningham, go ahead.
Yes, they're just saying in the report that there were 50 referrals made and 6 were from the RCMP. So I'm assuming that you're I know you're working collaboratively with them on an ongoing basis, and really want to applaud both you and the RCMP for doing that. So it's good that they're getting the help that they require. Generally speaking, I don't want to get too much into specifics because it's a very, very small number, but those are situations I would expect that would really, really need somebody's attention. Is that correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome, thank you.
Any further questions? Oh. Councillor LeBlanc, go ahead.
Thank you, Ashley. That was a good report. You see a lot of people that can't afford fuel, that can't afford wood, or can't afford medication. Do you see how to improve that?
There are programs out there to help with, so the fuel bank, in terms of fuel specifically, the fuel bank is out there to help access those. There is the heating rebate that can be accessed. And then there's it's called the heat fund that can be accessed on every 2 years, specific to fuel. And then we work on a case-by-case basis to see other ways that we can help a client alleviate those costs or funds. So often if you can, like property taxes, if they qualify for the property tax rebate, having those funds towards that can help them fund something else. So helping them put forth the budget and prioritize and access the funds that are available is important as well.
But there's still some that fall through the crack.
There is, if they're not reaching out and I'm not aware, there are some that can
Yeah.
fall through the cracks.
Okay. My wife's a care coordinator, so she talks. She can't believe how some of the people live. It's,
It is important that people, if they're not sure, to just make the phone call. It never hurts to ask.
Yeah.
And to have that, and it's just a conversation as to say, you know, what is available and is there anything to help, and we can have that conversation. So even if they're not sure if they qualify or can apply, it's still important to reach out.
I can't understand how people can live with just old age security. I hope it never happens to me.
Councillor Durkee?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Ashley. Ashley, when you're out there speaking to those who are lonely and with dementia, are there places for them to go? Do they have support or where someone can actually go in and take them to programs that are available? Or are they strictly stuck on their own? And the reason why I've just been through this with my mom, so I understand the whole scenario. And to me, I know that the province and the government thinks that it's best to try and keep people in their home, and quite frankly, I completely disagree with that. I think the social component for seniors is extremely important. And so the first question about are there people to take these people out to programs, and second, are these people making application to residences and homes to get them out of that scenario?
Okay, so the VON has a wonderful program called the Adult Day Program that runs on Thursdays that seniors can access. That's run out of the Hope Center. So that is a one way to help with that loneliness in terms of the dementia piece. There's also things like the lunch and learns that are happening at South Ohio Community Hall. Those are things to access and to plug into. And hopefully we'll see more of those as time goes on. Those are all key components, so making them aware of those activities. We are very fortunate in Yarmouth and in Modi to have great programming. Making them aware is key to participating in that program, and also helping them with transportation. So linking them to a family member who may be available, or linking them to a community partner like Hope Dial a Ride. The VON has a new transportation program for seniors with a frailty that will help them. It's a door-to-door service at minimal cost, and it's volunteer-based, and that volunteer stays with them door to door. So that is a fantastic program that people are accessing. In terms of making applications to seniors residents and long-term care and boarding homes, it is happening. Ultimately, if somebody is competent and wanting to stay in their home, then we need to respect that choice and to keep them in their home safely, and put those supports in place to help them stay there. So that might mean the socialization aspect, that might mean continuing care coming in, that can mean a variety of things. So supporting them in that decision as well. Ones who are making application are going once they get accepted, but again, the wait times for even seniors housing can be quite substantial at times. And the need is great, for sure.
Yes, absolutely, thank you. One of the problems, though, with dementia, of course, is that people don't remember that these programs exist. So if there's a volunteer that can actually facilitate that and call them and remind them and set it up, that really
Right.
helps. And again, it's really important for, as you probably know, for these people with dementia to have someone as power of attorney that can make decisions for them when they can't do that.
Most definitely.
Yeah, thank you very much.
I have a couple of quick comments, if I may. I was just doing some quick calculations here, and 418 home visits, 698 phone visits, and I want to say the home visits you have to drive to, drive back from. You don't walk in the door and say hello and goodbye. So
No.
the time spent on these home visits, the time spent on the phone would be the same, because they can arrange, I would assume, from 2 minutes to probably 15, 20 minutes or even longer, and so on. And I just do, there's 5 work days in a week, and there's 52 weeks in a year, and then there's vacation time, and so on. The amount of clients that you see and or visit or handle, you have here 1,100, but I also see in your report all of the different sessions that you go to, and so on, South Ohio, et cetera, Arcadia, and so on, putting on seniors courses, and so on. What I'd like to say is that is only a very small fraction of the amount of seniors that are out there. We all know that a lot of seniors were brought up, you do it on your own. They've been educated as young people, let's go back 70 years now, what they were taught, and now, you do the best you can do with what you got, and that's what they work with. There's a lot of seniors out there that do not participate. They are scared to participate. And I believe over the years that the municipality has had this program, we have reached and touched a lot of seniors, but there's still a lot of seniors out there that have no idea. I also know that in some of these home visits, as you stated, the vial of life is one of the most important things that you can possibly have stuck onto the refrigerator, saying that the information is inside the refrigerator.
Yes.
I believe it's helped a lot of seniors in predicaments when they've been picked up by EHS or the RCMP have gone and seen what Medicaid, et cetera. I believe that's one of the most important. But the loneliness, and you know where I'm coming from, by elderly is huge. What has happened over the years is, we've all seen it, is the out-migration of young people, family members that have left, and there's a lot of seniors that have no family members here. And as they get older, have dementia or whatever, get sick, frail, that loneliness, they're by themselves. And I'm so thankful that the municipality picked this program up the years ago that we did. And as I've told my fellow councillors, at that time, boy, it was a hard pill for us to swallow. We didn't think it was going to be necessary, and we only took it on for a 6-month trial basis. And at the end of the 6 months, when Doris came in and told us there was no ifs, ands, or buts, no, you go with her, you run with it. And I don't think it will ever come to be that the municipality would ever give up this program. It's very important. The only thing, and I don't like saying this because I don't like spending money when I don't have to, but I believe, us another support person part-time person is needed in, I'll say, in the very near future, because we are running into a situation of you're just overwhelmed and so on. Ashley, thank you very much for your report. It's very informative. I'm sorry, do you have any questions, Ray? It's very informative to us as councillors and so on. You've done great work, and I can say this from, I know some residents in my area, for you to get into the door was hard, but once you were in, I've talked to that resident, and they're very thankful. They're very thankful for your support on that. Thank you again, Ashley.
Thank you.
5.2, councillors, is not going to happen because of the snow and so on. Glenn couldn't make it down, so the on transit is not before us in Vibrant Community Housing.
They'll be in, but they're scheduled for 11, Mr. Warden.
Oh, okay.
So what we can do is we
Do
can
5.
move down to number 6, and we can come back to the presentations at those time slots.
Okay. Item number 6, business arising from the minutes. 6.1, standing item, rural internet update. Go ahead.
So yay, we got a project. We did. So I just want to refresh everybody's memory. When the Internet Trust was announced and Develop Nova Scotia received their mandate from the province, and they looked at the body of work, they were given an additional direction that they had to roll out 2 procurement processes. The first process was to be designed to receive submissions for projects that could be built within a 12 to 18-month window. And then the second procurement process would be for any other projects that would seek to serve homes that qualified. So remember, the goal is to get more than 95% of homes and businesses access to reliable, high-speed internet. Not necessarily a particular type of technology, but reliable, high-speed. So the first RFP round went out, and we have an internet service provider that we're working with as a consortium through the Western Wren. And we had a project that fit the parameters for round 1 that Bell put forward, and it was announced, it was awarded. The municipality of Clare chose to work a little bit differently and came in late in the game, and with their internet service provider, proposed work that is more than 12 to 18 months worth of work, and they were awarded the funding. So it's created a bit of confusion with the residents, you know, how that could happen. It was a concern that we raised with Develop Nova Scotia before they awarded the contracts, that this could happen because we knew that there were bids put in that construction-wise would take more than 12 to 18 months. And at the end of the day, there were clauses in the RFP that indicated a person could propose that if they wanted to. So, although it didn't honor the spirit of the RFP in our opinion. Having said that, our proposal is a very efficient and effective proposal. So our project is going to reach homes at a cost of $895 per connection, where with Mainland Telecom's project in the municipality of Clare, it's going to be $4,910 per connection. So we're getting fewer connections, but for a lot less money per connection. The municipality of Clare also went a step further, and they've contributed monies for connections to properties that don't qualify for the Internet Trust money because they're already serviced in some way. So that's also making things look a little bit confusing in the media because those connections are included in their award, but they're not new connections. They create competition in the marketplace. So that's why it's a little bit confusing for everybody. I know that I spoke with the deputy warden because he had some residents who raised concerns about why such a big variance between one municipality and another when both have a significant portion of residents who are underserved. So that's how we understand it came to be. Altogether, the municipality of Yarmouth, the municipality of Barrington, and the municipality of Digby, not including a project in Bear River. Altogether, it's 1,900 connections. So the municipality of Argyle did not receive an award in this RFP. Round 2 RFP opened on Monday. I haven't looked at it yet. I don't know when it closes. But I would say, you know, we got a small project this time. The rest of the work that has been identified as qualifying work will be submitted in round 2.
Any questions this time for Councillor Allen? You have the floor.
Well, I'm excited because obviously the award is in my area. I am disappointed that we missed. However, Claire got in with a little extra. We have many more people in our area that obviously need internet. Do we know for sure that we are part of this second round, that we are submitting a bid? Do we?
Yeah, the work's, our internet service provider is doing the work right now, working on the submission. Oh, absolutely, we're
Okay.
submitting, no question.
Okay, because I definitely, if we're starting on this, I don't want to miss the bus. I'd like it to not stop.
Nope, nope.
Yeah.
And in fact, our internet service provider is looking at 2 submissions right now, a submission to the federal money that opened up, and also a submission to RFP round 2.
Okay.
Yep.
Councillor Durkee, you have the floor.
Thank you. And I don't know if that you can answer my question, but, and I know John and I both are concerned about this in particular, but with these improvements to internet, can this somehow improve our cell service in this area? I mean, are they putting up more towers? And, I mean, I think this is all fiber, but this still needs to be addressed, and I'm really concerned that it's not.
So the project is around reliable, high-speed internet, although Develop Nova Scotia and the province of Nova Scotia have been made well aware about the issues with cell service in communities like Modi, and there's more communities like Modi in the province that have those gaps, those dark areas, I'll call them. And so they're well aware of it.
Okay, but,
Yep.
yeah, we don't know yet. Thanks.
Deputy Warden.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. You spoke about dark areas, Madam CAO. I expressed my concerns to you, and one thing that upsets people the most about this announcement is we have dark areas. In other words, areas that does not have internet. We're talking about spending forward these internet funds, this $193 million funds through the Nova Scotia Internet Trust Fund. That was not intended, from my perspective, to be used for competition in the marketplace. I know I'm speaking to the choir here and my fellow councillors, and I know the CAO has no control over that. But this is something that I'm going to be bringing up to our MLA and MP in regards to this Internet Trust Fund. It was not created or put forward to create competition in the marketplace. That is the most upsetting thing that I've heard here. I'm going to have to go to different levels of government and express my concern, because I don't want to say something that's inappropriate, Mr. Chair, therefore I'm going to turn my microphone off.
Okay. Was there any further discussion? I only have a couple of quick comments. I did read through the announcement and so on. I know the announcement was going to be held in New Germany for last Friday. And I know the municipality, the CAO, and I think Councillor Allen, you thought you might go. I was in Truro on Thursday, and my intent was to make myself available to go on Friday, but I did get the announcement that they canceled it. So I didn't rush home. I only came as far as the valley in that snowstorm and stayed overnight in the valley. But I appreciate the thought that both Councillor Allen and the CAO had or were going to make attempts to go to that. I believe it's important when we are included in any announcement and so on of any funding that we should be represented. But I also was very surprised to find in the announcement that there is places just outside of Halifax that don't have internet and so on. I believe Enfield, Cumberland, or Colchester County and so on. There was areas there that have internet issues also, and that's just outside the Halifax itself. So it isn't that we're unique, but we do need internet in order for us to be able to show industry that we are connected to the rest of the world. So, and I know, Councillor Allen, you have, on the point, on Pinckney's Point, there's a lot of fishing industry businesses. There is a lot of boat operations out of Pinckney's Point and so on. And to be able to have internet connection, to be able to make contact with any of your suppliers or with any of the businesses that you do business with, this will be an added bonus for them down there. And I think it's great. We're getting an area done and so on. And I've come to learn in whether it's municipal politics, it takes a long time to get one step done. And this is a step done. And it's kudos, for the municipality. It was part of our strategy plan, number one, I believe, on our strategy. And it's a first step, and we'll keep moving forward from there. So it's a good thing. On that note, we'll move on to 6.2, accessibility, the CAO and Director of Corporate Services. If, Darlene, you'd come down. You have that in your package, your councillors. Who's Darlene taking the lead on this, or?
Well, I'll start,
Okay.
and then we can talk about it. So,
Okay.
as you recall, I brought forward to council the requirements under the Act that we develop an accessibility committee, and the committee would have specific roles and responsibilities under the Act, primarily to develop and recommend an accessibility plan to the municipality. So the first step for us, and I received direction, was to go ahead and create the framework for the committee. Darlene will be our accessibility lead on the team as Director of Corporate Services and the lead developer for our policy and bylaws. So Darlene has crafted a draft terms of reference for you that was provided to you in the package, and we are seeking a recommendation today for approval to council on these draft terms of reference. Maybe, Darlene, you could just highlight the membership structure, just for the
Sure.
benefit of the listening public.
Yep, I'll bring your attention to that section, membership. Excuse me, I have a cold, so my voice is kind of funny. What we've indicated on there, what we're recommending is that we have 2 municipal councillors on this committee and 5 members of the community. We have to have, at least half of the members have to be people with disabilities or who work for organizations that represent people with disabilities. Members, we're suggesting that they be appointed for a term of 4 years and that they can be appointed for consecutive terms. We thought it might not be the easiest thing to find members to sit on the committee, so we thought that was probably a good idea. And the applications would come in and council would determine who actually got on the committee as a member. Once on the committee, the members of the committee, as you see in the next section, the qualifications don't represent just one person or represent themselves or represent a specific group, but they represent the community as a whole. Then we go into the roles of each member of the committee, the chairperson, the staff members, and the members themselves. Meetings would be held at least twice a year or more frequently if determined that it was necessary. And the committee will be an advisory committee to the council, so recommendations would be made to council for approval and discussion.
So under the legislation, we do have timelines we have to work to. So approval by council on the terms of reference will allow us to go to the market and advertise for the positions and get the committee in place. We have until 2022, 2021 to deliver the plan to council?
1 year is my understanding, 1 year from April 1st.
From April 1st,
Yep.
yeah. So we've got a lot of work to do in a year.
Okay, is there any questions or concerns from committee? I have a couple, if I may. Yes, okay. On the membership, the advisory committee consists of 2 municipal councillors and 5 additional community members. Members shall be appointed for a term of 4 years. Committee members may be appointed for consecutive terms. In accordance with the NSAA requirements, at least 1/2 of the members must be persons with disabilities or representatives from organizations representing persons with disabilities. So 1/2. So I'm doing a calculation. 2 and 5 makes 7. So you got to have 4 from organizations
That's right.
that represent disabilities and so on.
That's
And
right.
then the other ones can be, or the other person could be just a person at large from the community and so on, but they don't have to be disabled or anything?
No, the requirement is at least 1/2 of the committee members have to
That
be.
come from representatives. Okay, so my
Yeah.
question, I guess, is going to, I'm not saying that we don't have enough organizations, but there is that amount of organization. I know there's hope.
So,
Totally
so
catch it.
1/2 either have to be individuals with a
Yes.
disability or represent an
Representative
organization. Either
Okay.
or,
Okay,
yep.
okay, now I get it.
And it could be a
Okay.
counselor.
Yes, no, I understood
It
that.
could be
yeah,
a counselor, right? It could be a counselor that has a disability, which
Yes.
would count
Okay.
towards the qualification.
yeah, okay. Okay, I was just wondering on that, on the membership, like,
Yep, to
how it
understand.
fulfills out there. Now, I guess, and I know we're accessible, so I guess your meetings would be held here and so on, because we do have the accessibility right now to have meetings and so on, because biannual meetings, I know that's not enough to start, but
We have a certain level of accessibility.
Yes.
You know, there's still some issues in certain places.
yes. Oh, yeah.
But yeah, we could hold meetings here.
Start here. Okay,
I didn't include on there that membership needed to be people who were living or working in the municipality, but that's what we do for all
That's
of
our
our other
policy, yeah.
committees, so.
okay, okay. Was there any further questions? If not, there should be a recommendation going from the committee of whole to council to approve this. So I'm looking for a recommendation from somebody.
Yes.
Okay, okay, recommended by, yeah,
To the regular council meeting.
okay, by Councillor Durkee. Thank you. I guess that's it. That was a quick one for you.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, next item, 6.3. Travel and expense policy, T-088-17. This is from January 8th meeting. I can't remember, can the CAO please bring me back up to speed?
So the question had come up from council to take a look at the travel and expense policy because we are aware that there are different ways for compensating appointed and elected officials for their expenses in conducting the business of the municipality. So I brought the document forward, and the direction from council was for the Director of Corporate Services and myself to do a little polling, do a little research, and see what we could find in terms of what models are being used. So Darlene has done that work, and the very last page of your attachment is a summary of that work, along with an excerpt from your policy with your wording around the provision for recovery of expenses. So if you look at the table that was provided, you'll see that all except one of the municipalities that provide a per diem amount for your meals do not require the receipts. It's usually an either or. And the way our policy reads right now, it's a bit of a hybrid. So we call it a per diem, and we have a daily maximum, and we require receipts because we reimburse for actual expenses. And that's actually trying to live in two worlds. Because a per diem says you can have X number of dollars for X type of an expense. Full expense recovery is whatever it costs you to eat breakfast, it costs you to eat breakfast, submit your receipt, and we'll reimburse you. So I think that's where council wanted to maybe try to do a better job in terms of being clear on how we compensate for expenses, and maybe move to one system or the other. And so we did the research on the per diem. Darlene maybe can share a little bit about, how she went about collecting the data, just so you understand how we got the comparators.
Sure. I checked with some of our neighbor municipalities, as you see there, town and municipality of Argyle. Some of the other municipalities that are listed there that we got information from, this was through the listserv, through the AMA listserv. I also included the information for the Nova Scotia government rates. And you'll see there, Wolfville was the only one that doesn't, of the ones that I was able to get information from, Wolfville is the only one that doesn't do a per diem rate. So the amounts that are there is just a summary of what each unit provides for the per diem rates. And so no receipts are required for these rates. I believe with some of them, if the meal had to go over and above that amount, then there would be, receipt would be required. It includes tips because again, it would be no receipt required, just a straightforward rate. And most of them, as you'll see down below the chart, it says that breakfast would be eligible if they're going to be working for more than an hour before the start of the workday, which is recognized as 8:30. Lunch is obviously when you're traveling on municipal business during lunch hour, and dinner is when someone is not expected to return to their residence before 6:30 p.m. If they're returning before that, then it would not be, a per diem rate would not apply. And then down below is, as Victoria said, the policy as we have it now.
Councillor Durkee, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Darlene. Yes, I would prefer to go to the per diem rates. I'm fine with whatever rate, we already have. It's the whole receipt and making sure you get the original receipt, and then you have to get the receipt with the tip on it. And to me, it's just much easier if we go to per diem. And if we go over that amount, we go over that amount. That's our choice, and we pay the difference. But that's what I would recommend, prefer without receipts.
Okay. Councillor Allen?
I think I'm in agreement with Councillor Durkee, except, am I seeing that we allow an $80 per diem?
Total, no more than $80. So technically, even if you submitted receipts at $80, you'd be done, technically, right now, the way our policy reads.
I'm looking at the per diem rates here, and like, when they kind of start figuring on so much for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, none of them are close to $80.
Nope.
So is our $80 a little high?
It's a lot, but it also includes sundries, $80. So if you read our language, it includes more than breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I'm just going to go to the language. Meals and incidentals. So incidentals could be a $10 parking. Incidentals could be maybe you were at a hotel and you needed something urgently and had to have it, like.
And I understand that, but I'm just kind of looking through this, and I'm looking at, we'll say Inverness for an example, who allows $15 for breakfast, $20 for lunch, and $30 for dinner, plus an incidental, and they're still only at 75.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of being Scroogey here, but I just find $80 high on our part.
Well, it is, except for, and I'm going to challenge the breakfast. If you're attending municipal business, chances are you're at a conference or at a meeting in a hotel. And I'd like to know where you could get breakfast in a hotel for $10 or $15 now, unless you're staying in one of the hotels where breakfast is included. So the 80, in my view, would mitigate some of that.
Okay.
We don't know, Darlene, when those units last reviewed their figures either, do we? So the ones that were
No.
reported in the listserv, we don't know how old they are, do we?
Right, that's right. And we don't have to, the policy doesn't have to continue stating a daily maximum. It can state a maximum per meal.
Per
It
meal,
doesn't have
yeah.
to state $80, but when you decide on what amount you want to put in for each meal, it can just state that in the policy.
Yep, rather than a daily maximum.
Yeah. And obviously, if you're somewhere where breakfast is included or lunch is included, then there wouldn't be reimbursement for that meal.
Councillor Cushion?
Thank you. I like the per diem rates myself, but again, our CAO was alluding to the $10 breakfast. I think that's a pretty hard job to come by when you're at a hotel or a conference or something, right? So, but I do like the per diem rate because it's hard, your receipts get lost, it just, if you just have X amount that you can spend a day, it's good for me, right? So, anyway.
Councillor Durkee?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So if we go for breakfast and we spend more than $10, we can actually provide the receipt and get reimbursed. So am I correct in that? Like if something happened up to the $80 or whatever, and we were charged more, if we provide the receipt, then do we get the additional amount, or do we want to add, $10 for incidentals?
So it would be your policy, you would decide. So
Yeah.
some units,
Yes.
it's an absolute limit. Some units say these are the guidelines, but if you go over and you submit a receipt, then it can be considered. So it's
Okay.
your policy, you will decide.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if we did this with the caveat that if we spent more, or if we do have incidentals, we could provide the receipts up to, and be reimbursed up to $80. Does that make sense?
Because you're getting $80 regardless.
No, no, because we don't know, because we're only getting breakfast, lunch, and dinner with this.
It's a per diem, so we're allowed $80. If you go away for 4 days, you're going to claim $80 each day. Correct.
So I think what we should do first is, so first of
No.
all, let's start at the beginning. Is there consensus on council that you would like us to work on a framework that's a per diem framework?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so now, let's talk about breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and the amounts that you want to give us direction to consider.
Well,
Sorry.
Trevor next. Go ahead, Trevor.
Yeah, and I mean, I've been at several tables that we've talked about this. It's not, I mean, obviously the optics of it are pretty important, but none of us travel too much. Maybe the warden travels a little bit more, but most counselors are only away a few days a year, so the overall amount of money is not a huge amount, but the optics are important. So I would agree certainly with the per diem. And if you can get into situations where, you know, out in the future, somebody may go to a place that's very, very expensive. You know, it could be a city that's very expensive. That hasn't been the case, you know, lately, although certainly if you go to a city in any hotel where you have to pay for breakfast, it would probably be more than $10, obviously more than 15. Usually around 20 or 25 with everything. So the per diem is the right thing. I'm not certain what the maximum amount does in essence. So if there's, I mean, I don't think anybody should be coming back with a $100 meal bill unless it's really justifiable, right? Like, I don't know where we'd be going that it would cost that much. So maybe something like, you know, I think 35 in most cases would handle a meal, or 30 would handle a meal, or 25 would handle a meal in the evening type thing. So I guess it's just a matter of maybe taking an average of all those numbers that you've collected, and that's the justification, because I mean, it is an arbitrary to an extent type number, so if we were to take an average of all those dinners, lunches, and maybe breakfast could be a little bit more, and put on a $10 incidental for folks, because you usually have a few, that would be good. And this is also travel policy for staff, which is, staff's probably traveling more often than council, so we want to be fair to them, because I think the ultimate aim of any expense policy is to ensure that people are reimbursed at an appropriate level for their actual expense. So, I mean, receipts would probably do it perfectly, but receipts are onerous, people lose them, it's problematic. So without, I think, again, there will be many, many opinions on this, but I think what you're doing, Madam CAO, is generally proper and fits the bill. So those would be my comments, and I'd support that type of thing. What the number actually ends up at is it's kind of a cost accounting type thing. So I'd be willing to accept, you know, a range, I think, as most people would, and so maybe if you bring that back to council with a little bit additional thought, I think that will work.
Okay. Councillor LeBlanc, you have your...
So, the way that I understand it, do we need receipts if we just go for per diem? No. Okay, so you know that we're in Halifax, we're staying at the Westin, and we get $80 a day. So if we want to spend $80 for breakfast, that's up to us. Then
It's not quite that,
Simple.
if I can, Mr. Chair,
You know,
it's
go
not
ahead.
quite that easy. So if you're attending an event
yeah,
and you're away, and lunch is provided,
yeah.
then your maximum that day would not be the total of breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Your maximum that day would be for the meals that you would incur an expense for.
Okay. Okay.
This is why per diems were not popular back in the 90s.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay.
Councillor Allen?
So I guess that's what I'm trying to get at. But I think we've either got to go one way or the other. You've either got a per diem, and you've got to, because you're back to collecting receipts essentially. You're either collecting receipts with a per diem or collecting receipts without it.
No,
Well,
what
if the dinner's included and all of a sudden you only have 2 meals, you have to provide proof of what them 2 meals cost you, because you're not getting the $80 per diem.
no, but you would bill your breakfast and supper amount for that day.
So you'd have to keep your receipt for your
No,
breakfast and
no,
supper.
you would just say, I had breakfast and I had supper. So the expense form would show breakfast, lunch, and supper, and you would put down which meals you incurred an expense for.
Without proof.
Yeah.
So how much would the
But you're only allowed to
breakfast
clean.
and supper be?
Well, I think what I'm hearing is we would take an average of what we're finding in the sample that we took and recommend numbers to council along those lines. So what Darlene and I can do is, what we'll do is, we'll go craft some draft language and some draft structure for you to look at. Because right now, I don't think we're all exactly on the same page, but I think I have a sense of where council wants to go. So I think what we'll do is go back and we'll craft a draft amendment for you to look at, which would be exactly what we would be proposing based on what we think we've heard. And see what it looks like. And then you'll be debating and discussing something concrete in front of you.
Councillor Durkee?
Right, thank you. Yes, just to clarify, no, we would not get $80. If you had breakfast, you would get 10. If you had dinner, you'd get 35. And if we put in something for incidentals, which is 10, that's fine. But if you don't, so you're not getting the $80. You're only getting the amount that we have allocated for those 3 specific, or 4 specific things, which, you're right, don't add up to $80, so that it would be less.
Go ahead, Councillor.
But if we're at a hotel, the point I'm trying to make, if we're at a hotel that is not going to supply our meal or a conference, then we can spend that 80 any way we want. Yeah,
That's
thank
right.
you.
No.
Thank you.
Yep.
That's not what Councillor Durkee just said. So I think that's important to be clear. So Patty was saying, Councillor Durkee was saying that there'd be an amount per meal rather than an amount per day. So if you were at a conference and... It's still called per diem. It's still called a per diem rate. Even though it's not a daily amount, it's an amount per meal.
But Councillor LeBlanc is right. At the end of the day, if you're gone for a 2-day conference and no meals are provided, and let's say the arithmetic adds up to $80
Yes.
for breakfast, lunch, and supper, and you choose to blow it all on breakfast, that's your problem. So he is correct. Hypothetically speaking, it could work out that way.
But he would need receipts for that.
No, not if the total added up to 80. If the total allowable amount for breakfast, lunch, and supper added up to 80, and Councillor LeBlanc spent 80 on breakfast, 20 on dinner, and 100 on supper, he'd only ever get 80.
Yeah, he'd
Yeah.
only ever get 80.
Yeah.
But he would only be entitled to 10 for breakfast, correct?
Yeah,
That's
but-
what a per diem is it not?
Yes, but-
Once you've allocated that,
Yes, but when he comes back and files his expenses after the conference, with no receipts, he's going to charge back, if he had to buy breakfast, lunch, and dinner, he's going to charge back the maximum for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
that's not $80.
It's a hypothetical number right now.
Right, it is, yes.
Okay.
And incidentals come to
Yeah.
75.
Yeah. So I think what we'll do is bring back a framework with actual numbers, so we can all run the math, and we can all be sure we understand the interpretation correctly.
Deputy Warden, go ahead.
All right, to add a little bit more to this confusion, incidentals, for example, the FCM, I've never flown for an FCM conference. Incidentals would be included, $10. You park at the Halifax airport, it's more than $10. So what happens in that situation?
Well, you have the receipts.
Do you submit a receipt for parking, or is that going to be explained in this
So,
policy?
so what I've done in the past, and the Director of Finance and I have had a conversation around this, there are a couple of events, and the FCM is one of them, where things are a little bit different, and it's because of the way the cost to participate is structured. And so expenses for the FCM would get allocated to the FCM budget. So if you had to pay for parking or luggage to go to the FCM, that would be part of the cost of registration for the FCM. We would show it on the GL there. Because there's no way to do it without incurring those expenses, so it's not really an incidental.
So you read my mind, because, okay, we talked about parking, how about luggage? Because luggage is a minimum $25 charge per large bag. Smaller bags you can usually either, if they'll fit in the overhead, usually they'll take them for free, but it was just, there's things like that, and
Yep.
I didn't realize that, and I don't remember our budget stating that there was a line for FCM conferences for the cost of that. I'm not
There
going
is,
to-
when we do the calculation, there's an allowance for FCM per counselor, and the calculation for FCM includes the expenses for air travel and parking.
Okay, I was just making
Yep.
sure, just curious if that part was included in this, what we're talking about, or if it was something separate.
Yep.
So thank you very much for the
But
clarification.
to Councillor Durkee's point, quite right, we would still want a receipt for that luggage expense.
Oh, absolutely.
Yep.
Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor. Councillor Cunningham, go ahead.
Yeah, and I think it's important to understand that the overriding purpose of a travel expense policy is to reimburse employees and counselors at an appropriate, for expenses incurred for business on behalf of the municipality. So for instance, incidentals, I mean, it may be that you're in a place that, you know, you have something that you need to pay, like, I don't know, bridge tolls. Maybe you go across the Halifax Bridge 5 times in a day, for instance. I don't know if you're going to do that or not, but hypothetically you could. You would have incurred $10 worth of incidental expense. You'd simply put in the $10 for that. I don't think that includes buying bubble gum and, do you know what I mean? Those types of things that you may buy from time to time if you're at home, not on business. So, and I think that generally speaking, I mean, we can't put all the detail in, but if you're parking, Sometimes it's more than $10. So if you go to downtown Halifax and you've got a meeting that you're slipping into for the afternoon, and it's a $20 parking bill, you'd attach that to your expense claim and receipt it. You're not going to park anywhere for $10, right? So it's all those things. So generally speaking, if you've eaten a breakfast and it's your receipt $10, if you've eaten lunch. If you haven't, you just don't put the per diem in. And if there's an unforeseen circumstance and somehow that's more, I guess each individual chooses to receipt that. Let's say the dinner's, let's say you're going to a meeting and there's a planned menu. It's $40 for that night. You may either choose to do the per diem, or you may choose to receipt it for a little bit extra, so long as it doesn't go over that $80. But, you know, if you're at a business meeting, I don't know, maybe they're charging you. You're disagreeing.
I don't think that's what I heard council say, because we're living in the two worlds right now, and that's what I think I'm hearing is council would prefer to have a cleaner approach.
I heard that it's per diem, generally speaking, unless there's an exceptional circumstance where you're attached to a receipt. If it's over. But maybe, and I'm good either way. Just for clarification on what we're talking about. That's the right part.
So I think that probably what we need to do, so that everybody's clear, is to bring back a draft document that we can pick apart and see if we're where we need to be. Yes. Yeah.
Go ahead, Councillor LeBlanc.
This will be the last time. $80 for 3 meals a day. Now, it says here, plus up to 15% tip.
But this is the old one.
Oh, this is the old one.
This is the old one. We haven't even given you something new to think about yet.
Oh, okay, because the tip now is up to 18.
Well, it's not written in law that you have to do that.
Yeah, but anyways, okay.
Everybody done? Is everybody done?
Good conversation.
Okay. There's a very simple way to do this. You've been doing it. You bring in your receipts for breakfast, dinner, and supper. Case closed. If you spend $120 in that day for breakfast, dinner, and supper, then that's what you've spent. If Leland only spends $35 for breakfast, dinner, and supper, that's all I spent. I don't think any one of these councillors has ever tried to rip off the general public going to a meal. You guys are bashing this all around on per diem. I don't like per diem. And I'll have that discussion personally with the CAO, the reason why. There's a lot of loopholes in the per diem. When I have to bring back a receipt, that's my proof. And if I spend $15 for breakfast, I'd like to be paid my 15, not 10. I don't care about the $80 per diem at the end of the day if I spent this, this, and this. I think you bring back the receipts. If we're not capable as fully grown adults to bring back a receipt, then you deserve what you get. If you lose it, you lose it. Have I lost receipts? I have. Have I not been able to claim? Right. I had a claim one time I put into the municipality for a meeting I went to. I had not been authorized to go to the meeting. It was an extra meeting that came on while I was away to the original meeting, and I stopped and got a hamburger, and the municipality wouldn't pay me. Okay? So I had my receipt. Did I care that I didn't? No, but it's still in there. I think a receipt is the easiest way to go, and you won't have all this conversation and so on. Bring in a receipt, and that's it. But that's my opinion. But I'll talk to you about per diems, because I've had issues with per diems.
Oh, there's pluses and minuses with every
Yes.
system. There's no question.
Oh, yes, there is. Yes, there is. So is there any further discussion? It's going back to staff to work out a few more things so we can have some more discussion, okay, on that one? Pardon me? Are you what? That's what the staff is going to be looking at, Councillor, yeah, or Deputy Warden. Still going that way. Still going that way. And I'm fine with it. Whatever comes down, I can live with, but
If you hadn't noticed, we have a guest in the audience there,
yes, I noticed.
you know, and
You should put your microphone on. Yeah, I know, but there's people watching. You shouldn't speak without your
Oh.
mic on. Yeah.
No, I noticed the warden from Argyle, Danny Muse. At this time, I guess, are we ready for the 11 o'clock presentation? The Vibrant Homes
Thank you,
projects?
Darlene.
Are they here? John, can you take the chair for a few minutes, please?
Are they out in the foyer?
This is Adam and Jared, correct?
Yes.
Because when I told her I printed these off, she said they should have them. Yes.
Okay, I'll go check.
All right, everyone, we're moving on to item 5.3, the Vibrant Homes project. We have Adam Dolliver and Jared Abbott with us here. So your microphone is on if you want to get started, if you're ready on the presentation.
Sure.
We're waiting.
Yeah, she's just checking to see if the presentation is in. I believe it was emailed prior to me, but she's just going to check that. And if not, I'll just start with this. Oh, you all have it?
Yes, it's on our computers. What I think,
Oh, okay then.
I think what they're trying to do is get them up on the screen behind me and in front of me.
Okay, I didn't know you guys had it, so I'm good to start.
All right, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. So my name is Jared Abbott, and I'm here to present the Vibrant Homes project for you today. And this is it's phase 2. We're starting phase 2 of this project. It's a social enterprise ran by Shift House. And so I'll start with explaining phase 1 to you. When we started phase 1, what the project was we offered the service of giving the community, low-income residents in the community, we gave them, all they had to do was supply the materials and we would provide the labor costs free of charge. And the reason we wanted to do this project is because it helps keep people in their homes longer. So, because you don't like seeing people live in their homes for their whole life, and then when they can't afford repairs, they have to move out. So the project also helps by mitigating poverty levels, because then when the money they could have been saving when we provide the service to them, they can now use that money for other things they may need, like food or whatever needs they have. So, phase 2 of the project is we are going to change it up. Now we have developed a sliding scale, so whenever people apply, we take their income levels into account, and then based on their household income, that's how we determine how much they'll pay hourly. We needed to switch this so we're not totally reliant on grants. Now if we do it like this, we're able to keep the company self-sufficient. So we reinvest all the profits made back into the company so we can keep it going for longer. All right. So far, with phase 1, we have completed 85 services for 32 homeowners around Yarmouth. And, thank you. So for 32 homeowners, we have completed 85 services. And so once the people get our services, get in there, they typically find more problems to be fixed. So when our contractor's working with them, they usually find something else for them to do, which creates more services done. And another goal of our program here is we like to get the youth involved. We like to hire a youth handy person to work with the contractor. So not only are we mitigating poverty levels by helping homeowners, we're also creating employment for youth in the community who otherwise wouldn't have it. So as of right now, we have over 70 participants, and they request services from us, like, I have the examples up here. We have done window replacements. We have replaced 21 windows in the first year of operation. Oh, and I should mention, we received the Building Vibrant Communities grant in November 2018, and that's how we remained in operation for the first year. And this year we're operating with the Orange Door grant. So we also did window maintenances, door replacements, handrail replacements to help people have their house easily accessible when they otherwise wouldn't be able to. And we replaced the weather stripping, so like if houses had leaks in their windows, that would create mold and it would be an unhealthy environment for people of the community. So in the phase 2, we did the Orange Door, and we also are looking to create partnerships with whoever else wants to partner with us, because we want to also branch out into doing like corporation contracts. So if we have people accessing the higher levels of the scale, we will be able to reuse that money to help mitigate the costs for lower income. So we are looking to see if we can't get a partnership and get some help, like our advertising be spread around the communities. And also with more advertising, we're hoping to get more corporates involved. Or not just corporations, but businesses in general, rather than just local homeowners. So that's, I got ahead of myself here. That's what I put up right here. We're going to use that money back into help mitigate the costs. And right now, Shift, being the nonprofit, does not intend on taking any of the profits earned from this business. We're just going to totally use it for the social enterprise and help reinvest for the community. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask. I also have a testimony up here from one of the youth we've hired in the past. It says Matt up there was one of the youth apprentices. In the winter months, he helped with services like removing snow for people who otherwise couldn't. As of phase 2, snow removal is not something we do anymore, but we are looking to get the youth involved directly with the contractor we have, and he wants to get him in the homes, helping them replace the windows and do the more hands-on stuff. And we have funding for them to be employed throughout the whole year and doing whatever aid the contractor needs.
All right, is there any questions of councillors? Comments? Warden Anthony.
Thank you very much. You said partnership. Are you looking?
Oh,
He's lit up.
Might go or might shut off.
all right, I apologize for that. It'd be Councillor Daniel Allen. Mic is lit up.
Oh, great. So the numbers you're showing us, they're from your first year when you were from your first year that you were working under grants and things. But this year you're going to start charging labor.
Yes.
So I guess we're going into low-income houses, which we were really going in and assisting with.
Right.
But now we're going to start charging those same low-income houses labor to do to do the job.
Right, we have a sliding scale developed and we have all the information, so when they give us the income, like as an example, like if they report having 20,000 annual income, on the sliding scale, they'll fall like down towards the $10 an hour range, where the higher end, whoever wants to apply, if they're, say, 100,000 annual income, they would be up at the top end and be paying more. So what the plan is like when we achieve these higher income contracts as well, or not necessarily contracts, but just services, the money, extra money they're paying, which is still reasonable as far as contract work goes, that money gets reinvested into the lower, so we can offset the cost for the people who are reporting lower income.
Okay, yeah, okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Ward,
Thank
my
you.
apologies the
No,
first
that's
time.
Quite all right, no problem. You mentioned in their partnerships, you're here today before the municipality. Was you looking for a partnership with the municipality, requesting something from the municipality?
Yes, we were looking to see if you had any ideas, but also we were wondering if the local municipalities had any sort of contract work that we could take partner in and delegate to our youth staff. Like, an example, if you needed like cleaning work done around for, say, bylaws or whatever have you, that we could take the contract and have our youth employees working and help offset that. So that,
Okay, along that line.
and referrals. So that helps offset the labor for you. We take the labor front and it helps us decrease the poverty levels again by providing employment in the community.
Okay, and my last part of that would be, any of these youth that you hook up with, or I shouldn't hook up, get to go with a contractor, there is the possibility that, I'll say, if I've never driven a nail before and I go and do that as a youth, that I might proceed to be going to become an apprentice. Is there an opportunity in that?
There would be, yes. I suppose if the youth had never done it before, they'd be interested. That being said, with our job postings, we do try to look for some form of minimal experience to help the situation, because again,
Yeah.
it creates less risk for the youth, because if we have a youth who has no experience, it would be,
Yeah.
the contractor could obviously help them operating the saws and whatnot, but we would like to mitigate that risk as much as possible. Also, the contractor wants somebody who can provide more help for him, but yeah.
That could be, okay, thank you.
Sure.
Sorry, just wanted to speak to a couple of things. So I'm Adam Dolliver, I'm the Executive Director of SHIFT, and I've kind of thrown Jared into the deep end here. We just hired him for this position. Brittany used to coordinate the project, but she's been promoted. So this is kind of a trial by fire but for Jared. But I just wanted to say a couple of things to your questions. First thing is, when we were doing the pilot project, we were trying to engage youth who were at shift, who were homeless or at risk of homelessness. And we found that there really wasn't much uptake on that. The youth didn't really want to be involved. And the ones who did were not reliable in terms of getting to the job site and doing the work that we had asked them to do or contracted them to do. So what we're looking to do now, rather than engaging those at-risk youth, we're looking for a youth within the community. And so we're saying anyone up to the age of 29 who we could hire as a permanent employee, who would be an apprentice for this contractor who we have on staff. So it's a bit different than it was before. I also wanted to mention that in the pilot project, we were looking at making sure that people could stay in their homes, as Jared had said, but it wasn't restricted to low-income individuals. And moving into phase 2, as it's a social enterprise, we do need it to be self-sufficient. So we're not looking at targeting specific groups of people. It will be open to anyone. And of course, those with higher incomes would pay a higher rate for the labor costs. And that would help offset our stipends that we're giving to the lower income people. I'm sorry, I've lost my train of thought. I'm sorry, I've completely gone blank there. Sorry. So the ask of the council today, as Jared had said, what we're really looking for is a collaboration whereby, I think the main collaboration would be around referrals. So I'm sure we know there are lots of people in the community who need small home repairs, who can't necessarily afford them, or who can't get a contractor to come in. We know it's really hard to get a contractor to come and do any kind of job, especially a small job, because they're more apt to be targeting the larger jobs to make more money, which makes sense. So we're kind of another option for folks who aren't necessarily low income, but they don't have the expertise per se to complete the job in their home. And so we could target them as well and say, okay, you have the money to pay for it. You just need a contractor, so we can help you out there. And then, like I say, charge them at a higher rate than those lower income people. Our sliding scale is not something that we're publishing because it's really going to be dependent on the individual. So if there were a man, let's say, who called and asked for assistance and his annual income was $30,000, we would assess him in one way, whereas if a woman called and she said her annual income was $30,000, but she's a single mom and has 3 children at home, obviously the demands on her finances are different than the demands on his. So we would take those other mitigating circumstances into account and say, okay, well, we're going to give her a lower rate than him. So each individual will be assessed as an individual, and it's not just their income that we're looking at in terms of the rate that we would be charging. The rate covers the cost of operation, and as Jared said, any money that's made above and beyond the costs would just be put back into the project for the next fiscal year.
Councillor Trevor Cunningham. You have the
Right.
floor.
Yeah, I'm assuming it's mostly shift residents that are doing the work, number one. And number two, and is that correct?
That was the idea, but not moving forward.
No, okay. And secondly, we were just sort of having a little, I heard a few folks sort of talk around the table, and our senior safety program may be a source of work, and maybe there could be a little bit of coordination with staff, and I know people are thinking that. So there was a presentation that just happened, so we have an employee here that goes out and checks with seniors, and likely they're in need of some household repairs, and that would fit hand in glove with what you're doing. So that's one way in which we could probably help out as a municipal unit, and there are probably others that we can think about moving forward. So thank you for coming in. It's a really good thing to see this has happened. It's very well conceived, and very pleased that you're doing the work. So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Didn't come on. There you go, Councillor.
There we go. I think you guys have a very interesting project there. But I do have a few concerns or questions that hopefully you'll be able to address. My understanding, you guys have a contractor on site, on staff, or?
Yes.
Okay, number one.
Yeah.
Now, number two, do you have liability insurance for this individual?
Yes.
Getting on to people to assist in the labor part of it. Is there criminal checks and stuff like this done?
Yep.
Number three, how do you get the information for income status? Because that's very confidential, sort of thing, right? So that's probably be a sticky one.
Sure thing. So we do have a Red Seal carpenter on staff, and we do have insurance, liability insurance. Part of this is the same carpenter who we had for the original pilot project, and he received unanimous positive feedback from all of the participants. So they all were very happy with his work.
Oh, I'm not doubting that.
Yep. So we're very confident in him, and I'm sorry, what was the
about how do you get the information
Oh,
on
right,
income?
I'm sorry. So we've decided that we want to be as minimally invasive as possible. So
Correct.
we're not going to ask people to provide any type of proof of income. We're
Okay.
just going to say, we calculate our labor costs based on your annual household income. Can you tell us what that would be? And then we don't ask them to prove that. So we've decided, we're just going to go based on people. We're a charity, we're a social enterprise, we're just going to go on people's good faith. And then if we find or believe that we're being exploited, then we may reevaluate that down the road. But we're kind of going in optimistically, thinking that, people won't rip us off, hopefully.
No, I think you got a good project here, and I think, as Councillor Cunningham had alluded to about our safety coordinator, there's a possibility there to help out those in need. And I wish you the best of luck in it, and I don't know if our municipality would have something to offer also on the part of doing some labor work and whatnot. So it's an interesting part, and the best of luck.
Thank you.
Is there any more questions or comments of council? Staff?
Thank you, Adam and Jared, for coming in. I think what we can offer you is exactly what you're looking for. So we can include awareness about the service you're providing, the social enterprise piece on our website and Facebook page. If you have events coming up, send them along. I'll connect you with my team, and you can send emails to the team, and we will share for sure. And I will absolutely connect you to Ashley Rhino, our Senior Safety Coordinator.
Fantastic, thank you.
No more comments? Adam, yours, thank you very much for coming in, it was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
And I relinquish the chair back to the board.
Okay, we're down into item number 7, councillors. It's correspondence, 7.1.
Actually, Mr. Chairman, we're going to do 5.3, if that's okay.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, I apologize, yes.
5.4, yes,
Yeah,
thank you, Councillor
5.4.
Allen.
CAP presentation.
Yep, so while Greg's getting set up, Mr. Chairman, I'll just provide a little context. So Council has been talking about the work the NSFM is doing around the elimination of CAP, which has been their #1 priority for a while. And so what Greg and I wanted to do was to provide this council with the perspective about what is the situation with respect to CAP in the District of Yarmouth. So how many CAP properties do we have? Where are they? What's the variance between realizable revenue with the CAP and realizable revenue without the CAP? So the whole conversation today is not debating whether or not CAP should be removed. The conversation is about making sure council understands what the impact of CAP is on our municipality. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I think Greg has some information to share.
The floor is yours, sir.
Great, okay, so there goes my opening remarks. That's been done. Again, just to reiterate, it was just intended just to give you a look at the landscape as terms of how CAP has affected our total assessment here in the municipality. We all know CAP has been in and out of discussions around municipal tables probably since it was introduced. It continues to be a bit of a contentious issue, and I think part of that is because of it's a foggy issue. It's an area that people don't understand very well. So we'll just take a quick few minutes just to look at a high-level look at where we are in our municipality, and maybe wrap up with a couple summary comments that may or may not get me in trouble. Just a sec. Liz, we need cookies that are a little bit more moist, if you don't mind.
Is that your water?
It is now. So in terms of our assessment landscape, I hope that these slides are in order, but Our total assessment for residential and resource and commercial, the market value of that in 2019 was, you can see, is about $758 million represented in the blue box. The residential component of that assessment is $680 million. So that accounts for close to just about 90% of our total assessment. And then the capped assessment is $649 million. So it's 85% of the total assessment. The difference between the capped assessment and the market value assessment, and this is primarily on residential properties that we're looking at. We just ignore basically commercial because it's just such a small, insignificant sliver of the total pie. It doesn't factor into the equation very much. But I've called it the cap gap, and the cap gap is the difference between the market value of our residential properties and what the cap value is. And that cap gap is about $30 million in 2019. So in a large scheme of things, it's really only about 4.1% of our total assessment, residential assessment, and it really is quite a small component of our total available assessment. Okay, let's see how this works. That's just a recap of our dwelling count, just again for some context. About 67.2% of the dwellings, residential dwellings in the municipality are capped. And our theoretical revenue loss on per cap dwelling is $99. Okay. This is what I call the uniform assessment cap gap. The UA cap gap really is just a reflection of the difference in the rates. So the rates are set by the assessments and the budget number. And so there's a couple different rates in play. There's a real rate that we use. I guess there's a capped rate and then there's a market rate. So there's a gap. So what I'm trying to say is that our rates are artificially inflated because the value of the properties that we use to collect our taxes on are capped. But it's kind of difficult to see in this slide, and that's part of the takeaway is that the amount of the cap is so small in relation to our total assessment that the cap gap is trending down over time, but you can see it trends very closely to our overall market assessment.
So I think I'll just jump in there. So the gap between the red and the blue line over time is getting more narrow. And that's because cap is impacted when a property changes hands via a sale transaction.
So this next one is just the rate inflation. I call it rate inflation because of the cap. So again, the red is the inflated rate. That's the rate that we have to charge to balance. And the blue is the true rate, which I call a true rate to reflect the fact that if there was no cap, that's the actual rate that we would be charging to balance our books. So over the last 5 years, that rate has changed from like 8 cents per hundred to 5, and it's narrowing too, which is consistent with the trend in the market spread that is getting narrower and narrower and narrower. So, so in theory, for example, our residential rate in 2019 was $1.18, and theoretically it could have been $1.15, or sorry, $1.13. That's just a look at the theoretical loss of revenue that's not available to the capped assessment. So that's for the last 5 years. So the theoretical loss of revenue was at $500,000 in 15 and 16, and again in 1920, it's narrowing down to 364. Now keep in mind, we still are legislated to rebalance our budgets, so it's only a theoretical loss, which is, to me, is part of the fundamental problem of the cap system. So it's made up across the entire spectrum by inflating the tax rate and spreading the burden through the whole available market assessment, capped, non-capped, and commercial. This is just another look at the same thing. It's kind of like a bonus slide just to help make this a little bit longer. This expresses the same information only in terms of percentages. And you can see in percentage-wise, the cap gap is narrowing. If you start at the bottom of 15, 16, it was close to 7%. of our total assessment, and over time, it's gotten narrower and narrower to where we're at just over 4% in 1920. Now, these are the ones that are impossible to see. So these are a couple different examples I did of trying to look at hypothetical tax situations in the municipality, comparing cap properties to non-cap properties. There's two examples. This one compares two similar properties in the same neighborhood with similar values receiving the same services. And case number one is capped, and case number two is not capped. The average cap value on the properties in the municipality, I think, is about 4.5%, if I remember correctly. So I use that number to reduce it, the cap value. So the long and the short of it is that case one saves because of the cap, even though they have similar value properties in the same neighborhood, receiving the same the same services. The tax burden for case one is 4.2% lower than the tax burden for case two. Case two is paying about $80 more in taxes to subsidize case one, right? The net effect to us is still zero on our budget. The next one I have that you can't see is here. This one looks at properties in the same neighborhood but differing values, market values. They both get the cap at the equal rate of 4.5% approximately. I guess some people have considered market value of their properties as a very loose proxy for household income or household equity. So this is kind of looking, I guess, very roughly at a lower valued property, and maybe we could imply from that a property with lower incomes, household incomes, to a higher value property. But they still receive similar services in a similar neighborhood. These are both capped. Their market values are different, and this is sometimes construed as a loose proxy for household incomes. So the tax burden as a percentage of market value is the same, but the absolute dollar savings for case number two, the property that has a higher value, are higher than they would be in case number one. So the tax rate is still inflated, but at least proportionally based on market value, the burden is distributed equally. So it's difficult to comprehend some of this cap business, and there's a million different ways to look at it and break it down and consider the implications and the consequences. But here are some observations that I think are my observations that I've found from looking at a number of different exercises or examples beyond the two I've just quickly shown you. The cap system distorts the tax burden distribution as long as the common denominator remains property value. It doesn't necessarily create more fairness based on ability to pay, because this concept is not captured in our calculations. And municipalities are legislated to balance their budgets, so the cap causes unnecessary rate inflation, which causes confusion and mistrust. We would be better served by having more transparency and simplicity in the assessment valuation system. This would help to restore understanding of the system and trust. And see, so the cap was really, I don't know if I have it in my notes or not, I'm getting off the notes a bit, but it was basically a scattergun approach that was designed to cause a problem, to correct a problem. There was a problem that was more acute in some jurisdictions than others, and that was the problem of spiking property tax values that were affecting properties that have, lower income or household income challenges. So that was a scattergun approach. And so I don't know if that was the best way to do that. I think we would be better to help people who genuinely need assistance in meeting their tax obligations with targeted programs that everyone could understand and accept and respect. And so there's no real savings on a community-wide basis. Citizens are unknowingly subsidizing their neighbors. Some neighbors genuinely need it, but then some genuinely don't either. And so the scattergun approach to me is not an effective way to fairly distribute the tax burden, nor focus on the support to those who fairly need it. So those last couple of observations are more just my own editorial opinions on it, but I think a lot of people are coming to the same conclusion. It doesn't address the real problems of the day, which are helping people who can't afford to pay their taxes in some cases. The other conclusion we can draw from our own situation is that I think our cap is not as acute, our cap problem is not as acute as in some other jurisdictions, and I think that's a reflection of our softer markets. You know, we don't have quite as robust a market, real estate market as some other jurisdictions, like the South Shore being the prime example, where property values have peaked in the past and caused really severe problems for local residents. And we haven't, I think our numbers indicate that ours has been more level, our activity has been more constant, and the trend has been more level, and we're not as subject to the peaks and the caps. And so, while it's still an issue, it's not as acute for us, I think, as it is in some other jurisdictions. And I think yeah, I think I'll wrap it up there. I had a couple of comments for takeaways, but I think I've covered them in some of the observation comments.
Councillor Durkee, you have the floor.
Greg, I cannot thank you enough, and Victoria, for putting this together, which is one of the big difficulties for people in the province to understand why NSFM is trying to get rid of the cap. So just to sum up a couple of things, and this is from a most recent NSFM meeting, that you are absolutely correct. You could have two houses side by side that are actually very much the same. One is capped, one is not. One is paying way more than they should be because of the cap of the other one. And I can see in our area, there's not going to be a big difference. The second thing coming from NSFM that I have to say is that yes, the province saying you have to pay up this amount of money, and when a piece of property is capped, someone else is paying for that to make up that difference. So it could be you, could be me, it could be the other neighbors, it could be your friends, doesn't matter who it is, but someone else is paying. And the whole concept right now is this is going to be, what they want is it to be phased in over a long period of time so it does not cause an increase in taxes for anybody or hardship. So the idea again is to, as Greg has mentioned, is to come up with other programs like our low income program to increase numbers so that seniors in particular aren't going to have to suffer with that. Again, also what I'm hearing from across the province is that, yes, like, we're not so bad in the difference. There isn't a huge difference, but in other areas, there is a big difference. So again, people are paying more than they should be. And if the cap comes off, as Greg has pointed out, the tax rate will actually come down because we'll be meeting the needs without the higher rate. Am I correct in that?
I guess there's a prevailing principle that's being developed. I'm in the discussions is that it's revenue neutral. So the theory remains, I think, that we're still obligated to balance our budgets.
Yes.
And so all other things being equal, it appears that it could put downward pressure on those rates.
Correct. So it is absolutely not a tax grab as some people are thinking.
Now, hopefully that's what the case would be.
Yes.
Each council has the authority to set the rates at the levels that they want, as long as they balance their budgets.
Right. Thank you. I really appreciate what you did. Thank you very much.
Councillor Cunningham.
But I think it may be instructive, like District 1, 77% of the properties are capped, District 2, 90, District 5, which is my district, is 47.8. What are some of the big factors that play into those numbers being so different, even within our own municipality?
I can't speak really specifically to that because I was supposed to give an overview of the municipality. We didn't drill down into the district level. I guess probably with doing some work, you could probably relate that somewhat to the market value of the properties that are in the respective districts and how that influences the cap gap. But beyond that, we've been focusing just on the global picture for all of us on the municipality.
I had assumed that the market prices probably as a percentage of the value of the property would have gone up more in District 1 than in District 5.
Yeah, I don't have those in front of me, so it could be.
But I'll step in there. So that's the ratio of properties that are capped, not the cap gap. So there are fewer properties capped in District 5 and in I think District 5 is the smallest, 47.8% in District 5 are capped. Because once a property sells, it is no longer cap eligible. So in neighborhoods where there's more real estate being bought and sold, there's less
Well,
properties eligible
it
for,
loses its eligibility, it basically resets the new cap level.
'cause it has-
And then
yeah.
after that, it gets capped again.
yeah.
But it does cause that bump.
Yeah.
But I don't have that in front of me, Trevor. I think you're looking at a map of something? Yeah, okay.
But that speaks to the point that Greg made earlier around a system that is easy to understand, easy to predict, and easy to create bankability around. We just had a conversation that creates gray.
Yeah. Creates confusion amongst the people you're trying to gain trust from, your taxpayers, right?
Deputy Warden Cunningham, go ahead.
Well, I hate to say it, I don't see it that way. I don't agree with 100% that was put forward here. I agree with the cap system. Councillor Cunningham had pointed something out about District 1, 77.3% of the properties in District 1 are capped. Now, since I represent District 1, I can tell you this much. The reason why that many properties are capped, because it's long-time residents there. There's a lot more activity out in Councillor Cunningham's district. The whole reason for cap being enacted, and I'm sure that someone will not disagree with me, is because the concern that happened on the South Shore, someone come and built a $1 million home overlooking the ocean. Well, next door, a retiree in his lifelong home was worth way less. So what they did is the property values went up in there. It was all to do with real estate and stuff. It's a whole big story. The government, yes, did create a mess with the capped properties. However, there are many people out there, especially out in my district, and our population is aging. We keep saying that the age of the population is growing, it's getting older. There's a reason why the properties are capped, or the percentage of properties that are capped in the municipality are the way they are. We can sit here and debate this forever and a day. I tend to disagree. Greg, you had mentioned something, that our tax rate could be $1.13 instead of $1.18 if the cap was off. But however, you say that when you take the cap off, depending on market value and a whole bunch of other factors, these people that are retired in their homes, they could be affected adversely. And that is my big concern. We can sit here and debate this all day long.
Which is not the purpose of the.
Which is not the purpose of this, but I just wanted to state that everybody around the table agrees with everything that's put forward on presentations like this. We can sit here and debate them until the cows come home. You are obviously a finance man, and you see numbers and stuff, but I also see the real world. Not saying that you don't see the real world, Greg. Please. I'm not saying that you got. I'm going to close my mouth before I stick my
I'm
foot
living in
it
the
any
real world,
further.
buddy. No, I mean, debate is good. The differing opinions are good and objectives, and, you know, someday you recognize that you're wrong, John, and we'll move on, but that's good. No, debate is healthy. It's a complicated issue, and it's hard to understand it. You're right, it's subject still to the vagaries of all the different conditions that drive our budgets and council decisions, and
And the
it's
root of it all
complicated.
is the property tax system is regressive.
But because of that, that's why I think it's important to come back and keep it simple, so the more people understand it, the more trust you develop. And then you can do with other programs that you need to do that are more focused. And it is regressive, that's the other problem, but it's a fundamental problem that I have with our municipal tax system, and it doesn't reflect ability to pay at all. But that's not for here either.
Nope.
Yeah. Well, as CAP was initiated, CAP is going to be phased out, and there's nothing this council is going to do, say, change it. It's going to move forward, and I think right now they're looking at a timeline of 13 years.
yeah.
I think 13 years. So, I mean, it is what it is. When it came in, a lot of people didn't like it. As it goes out, there's going to be people that don't like it. It's half a dozen one, six of the other. It will happen and so on. I just like the way that the CAO and the Director of Finance has kind of updated and keeping us abreast of it, because it will play somewhat over the next number of years in our budget deliberations when we sit down and have discussions and so on, as it moves forward.
Yeah.
And so on. So hearing no further discussion, don't see any. Greg, thank you very much. Appreciate it very much. We'll move on then to item number 7, correspondence, 7.1 for action. 7.1.1, letter from the NDP caucus, meeting with the NDP leader, Gary Burrell. You had that in your package, and I see where, to be honest, when I read the letter and so on pertaining to, he would like to come and, at a council meeting, and I'm not sure if that's what council would like at a council meeting, or would you like to have it set up just as a meeting to sit down with Mr. Burrell and have an open discussion and so on, or what? Go ahead, Councillor Cunningham.
Yeah, I think that the letter's clear, an upcoming council meeting. In my mind, it's not capitalized, it's not a capital C, but I think it would be refreshing to see the leader of the NDP come down and talk to us about our issues and hear from us about things that are important to the municipality of Yarmouth. And I'm very, very pleased that he's written us a letter and is willing to come down and speak with us about issues that are important to municipality of Yarmouth and Yarmouth County. So I think we should arrange to meet with him at his earliest possible convenience.
Okay. Agreed. So just direction then to staff to set up a meeting with Mr. Burrell at a council meeting, an upcoming council. I take it that's an evening council meeting, televised, or do you want?
Well, it may have to be a meeting of council that's duly called under our policy that isn't our regular meeting. Because if we're going to meet at Mr. Burrell's convenience, then it may just be an extra council meeting.
Okay. Thank you. Number 8, new business, 8.1, no smoking at recreational facilities and locations. Councillor Cushion, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. At our last meeting, I mentioned that our Substance Abuse Committee had brought forward some information about erecting no smoking signs at our recreation facilities, and had come up with some pretty, instead of just saying no smoking, some more colorful ones that may be perhaps more noticeable, which is in your package there for taking a look at. So I guess what I'm asking, does council approve of something like this to have we can bring forward to our next council meeting, that we accept something like this to put in our recreation facilities to help curb that smoke-free space, just because of how everything has increased from smoking cigarettes, cigars, pipe, and whatnot. Now we're into to the cannabis part of it and whatnot, and it could offend somebody, or it could affect some children in some of these places.
Is there any questions? Go ahead, Victoria.
So Yarmouth Recreation administers those
Yes.
programs and facilities for us. So I would think that we would actually ask them to budget for that, for a signs program. They do have a line item in their budget annually for signs. My concern would be to make sure that the language on the sign doesn't make reference to any enforcement. Rather, it's positive messaging, because we are not resourced to enforce. No. We don't have a no smoking bylaw. We default to the provincial legislation around that. So if everybody's clear on that, I'll absolutely pass this on to the team and see what we can work in the budget for that.
Right on. Good. That's my wish.
Councillor Allen.
I guess, I don't know if this is the right place to ask this question, but we're promoting smoke-free space, which I'm 100% in agreement with. But our government, in all its infinite wisdom, is starting to come out with edibles. I don't know how you, I'll just go with edible cannabis. And I believe our policies don't allow that on any of our properties, if I'm correct.
So we have policy in place that says there's zero smoking, vaping, anything like that on municipal property. It's not a bylaw, it's policy.
Right.
And we haven't ventured into dealing with anything to do with edibles.
Well, that's something we should definitely be starting to look into, because my understanding is some of this stuff is starting to look like children's candy and things of that nature. And I think it's, personally, my personal opinion, it's a slippery slope we're heading on.
So what we can do, I think we need a knowledge base, because the federal government, they're setting the bar, and then the other orders of government are coming in behind them. So I think what we can do is begin to learn, and so we can see what we can find out in terms of the controls on edibles that are in place now, and understand them, and then we can go from there. So I can bring whatever resources we need to council so that we can begin to understand that.
Councillor Cushion?
Yes, referring to the edibles, our Substance Abuse Committee are looking at that and see how can we address it to bring forth to the council for some type of decision or some type of direction. So it is on our radar, and we are looking at it. As we all know, the province and the federal government in their wisdom said that all the profits that could be made off of the sale of cannabis would be coming back to us, so we could help do all this bylaws or enforcement and education and whatnot. But it seems like they're so far in debt, it's going to be a long while before we ever see anything.
Okay. I only have one quick question. Is this only on municipal recreation facilities? These signs that we're asking to put up, or
Yeah,
I
that's
think
correct.
that's what I understand.
just ours? Okay, no, because if it was something with recreation, whereas we're joint recreation, I didn't know if the town had to be included in the request
Yeah,
for
the
recreation.
request, I think, is for our properties we own, but it's through their budget.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I just wanted clarity on
Yeah.
that. Is there any further questions on that? Hearing none, we'll move on to 8.2, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, sorry, I'm interrupting before you read the title. I'm going to declare conflict on that item.
On which one? 8.2?
Yeah.
Okay, letter from the municipality of Barrington, personal development credit for students. You have that in your,
You've heard him, did you?
in your package, and that is, man, up here you come. That is to be able to give credits to students who volunteer or whatever concerning volunteer fire departments, firefighters, Department of Education. So you had that, and I think I understood it when I read it. If a student joins a volunteer fire department or looks at taking the training, would be given a credit from the Department of Education. And they're looking for a letter of support, I believe. Am I right? Yes. Would like to request your support for this application in the form of a letter or otherwise to allow schools in Nova Scotia to offer a personal development credit for students that join a fire department and undergo the required training. Yes,
I'm
Councillor
going to
Allen.
direct a question to Councillor Durkee, because she is a former educator. Personal development credits, how many are there now that are offered in our education system? Do you offhand know?
I can't answer that question, first of all,
Sorry.
because I am not a secondary school teacher. I was primary, so I really don't know. It would probably be... Yeah, yeah, that I can't answer. I do think this is a really good idea, though.
I think I can help. So on the province's website, there's a whole policy and approved program list for this type of initiative. So this initiative is something that the Department of Education does recognize, assists in meeting the learning outcomes of our learners in the province, but it's under a framework, a policy framework. So what the municipality of Barrington has done is, under that policy, they're making an application to have youth volunteer firefighters who participate in training, because you have to verify a training framework, have them receive personal development credit for those bona fide trainings that they would take as volunteer firefighters. So for example, under Cadence Academy, they're giving a credit for intermediate ballet and advanced ballet. There's cadet air rifle, cadet drill instructor, military band intermediate. Under Canadian Red Cross, there's water safety instructor, pool lifeguard. Under Department of National Defense, there's basic training. So there's a whole framework around having a particular training vetted by the department, who will then say whether or not it meets the policy guidelines. And if they say yes, and it gets added to this list, then students who take that particular training can apply for personal development credit towards their graduation requirements.
Deputy Warden, go ahead.
I'd like to learn a little bit more by what they mean by, don't get me wrong, I think this is a tremendous idea, but I'm a little concerned because when you're dealing with fire departments, you're dealing with dangerous stuff, equipment, calls. I'm just curious on what the required training would be.
So it's the training required by the fire department. When you join a fire department, in order to undertake certain activities in the department, you have to successfully complete certain trainings. Am I not correct?
Well, that's correct, like you have to do like first aid,
Right.
basic things like that. But when you start talking about like a level 1 fireman, you're talking about suiting up and learning how to take care of interior attack fires with breathing equipment.
But I think what Barrington is saying is they want to submit those trainings to the Department of Education. And if the Department of Education approves them, and they have a youth who successfully completes that, they want that youth to get credit in high school for that.
All right. I'd have to consider that a little bit more, because when you're talking about ballet and rifles in regards to cadets and lifeguard training, that's one thing, but I think we're talking about or asking two different things. And I think their initiative is great to try to get interest in the fire departments, but I don't know if this is about right way to go about it, especially when we're dealing with fire departments. I'm not sure. I'd have to give it some thought, because I haven't given any.
Do you wish to? Go ahead.
If you're talking about youth that are still going to school, is that what you're talking about, John?
Yeah.
High school? My grandson's been a firefighter since he was 18 in Clare, in Meteghan.
But see, he can fall under insurance policy. That's another liability.
He's a full fireman.
So I think you're misunderstanding maybe, Deputy Warden. This isn't suggesting that the high schools offer courses that are designed for firefighters. What it's suggesting is individuals who are in high school who have met the requirements of the fire department and taken the training, they would like to have the Department of Education recognize that training. Just flip your coin the other way. So the students are already registered in a fire department, they're already taking the training, they're already working towards being allowed to attend to different levels of incidents. And what the municipality of Barrington is saying is, if they're doing that, let's see if we can get them some credit in high school for that.
The way that I see it, when we're talking about school, we're not only talking about 18-year-olds and stuff like that, we're talking about 15, 16-year-olds as well. I'm just wondering if there's any provisions, I'm just trying to think of most of the fire department.
I guess I would have a question, if I may, through to the Deputy Warden, whereas you're a firefighter. What is the cost for if I wanted to go and join the Yarmouth Fire Department, I'd have to take training. What is my cost to do that, or is it free? Like, what's the cost?
Well, the training and stuff is not free. Let's not forget, remember we had here a presentation by the Lake Vaughan Fire Department on how much it costs to, say, get bunker gear? That's in the thousands.
Yeah.
Just for the bunker gear, the approved bunker gear itself, I think it's about $5,000 when you include the boots, the pants, the jacket, the helmet, all the fire equipment. That's
I guess what I'm looking at is they're trying to get people, or my assumption is they're trying to get young people interested. And yes, they'd have to go and join the Yarmouth Fire Department in order to take the training. Once they get all the training, I'll say it's level 1 or level 2, is it just the beginners? Is there?
Well,
And then they would be able to get a credit from the Department of Education.
But a level one fireman, that takes, like, say, winter, all over the winter months. It's, and then you do a final exam where you go into a simulated burning building with all the
Yeah.
breathing apparatus and stuff like that. However, there is like traffic control,
Yeah,
there's helicopter scene management, we could go on and on and on.
They're already doing it.
Yeah.
But
Well,
They're making a choice to do that already. This is just saying that education can give.
see, I don't know the age restriction in
Yeah.
the fire department. I don't know if they have one. I don't know if the doors
I'm
are open.
confident that there are age restrictions for what you can and can't do if you come in as a youth member.
Yeah, and that'll be through.
Probably
Department
through
of
insurance.
Education. So I guess what they're asking for is for a letter of support. So basically, what is the desire?
Yeah, I would be in agreement to support.
Okay. So, recommend.
three.
Yes, and myself,
Four.
I'll agree with that. Do we want to just make it as a recommendation and direct staff to send a letter? Or do you want this, a recommendation to go to the council meeting the end of the month?
Just
For a motion.
consensus is fine with me. Consensus
Just
is
through
fine.
consensus then? So Councillor Durkee, you're for it? Yes, okay, all of us, other than, and noted, yeah, that Trevor stepped out. So the only one right now is.
I'm just questioning.
Okay, just question it, yeah. So your questions are duly noted, but we're sending the letter of support. And they can argue it out, whatever they want to do, if Department of Education and the fire departments, and let them, but we think it's a good idea. And so on, okay.
There is some departments that use the fire.
Yeah.
That's not something that
8.3, grant request. The second Yarmouth Scout and Ventures, Yarmouth Media Association, Canadian Annual Conference, the Yarmouth Shark Scramble, Firefighters Museum, Yarmouth and Acadian Shores Tourist Association 55-plus games. The only one, when I went through them for if there was any time-sensitive one, the only one I wasn't sure of, and I didn't call, was the Travel Media Association. Or was it the 55-plus games that were looking for a letter of support? Or
It's Travel Media.
Okay.
They have a deadline February 27th, Mr. Warden.
Yes.
So it's two pieces.
Yes.
It's a letter indicating that we do intend to financially support, and it's a request for support. It's $10,000 in the 2021-22 fiscal year. Yep.
Yes. But the first letter, we don't have to put any that were the $10,000 request. We don't have to put that we're doing that. They're just asking for a request that we support it. And at budget meeting, we can deliberate whether we give them 10 or not. Isn't
I
it?
don't think that's the intent this time, Mr. Warden.
Whoa.
We do get that from time to time, but I think the letter of support in this case would indicate that we do plan to set aside the $10,000 in 2 years for this event.
I have some flashing lights. Councillor Cunningham.
All right, I did attend the session, it's probably a couple weeks ago by now, I think, if I remember correctly, at the Grand, and they detailed the benefits to our area. And again, we are a tourist destination, and this would see travel writers come from all over the province. In Canada, sorry. Yeah, and this was particularly useful in Cape Breton, and there were some people that gave anecdotal evidence that certainly it's well worth the dollar. So I think that we should send a letter of support. I think we'll get many times many multiples of the $10,000 back benefit to the community. So I think we should send a letter back to GASTA confirming our bid for the 2021 TMAC conference and AGM, and also to confirm the funding support $10,000 for the conference and AGM to be held in June 2021. And again, we'd put that in the fiscal 21-22. So if we can have consensus around the table through you, Mr. Chair, I think we could do that.
Where it's a money issue, Mr. Chair, a motion by way of recommendation to council would probably be more appropriate.
No,
Okay.
because I said we move that to council, and that will be in time.
Well, I'll give him the heads up, but it would get ratified on the 27th.
Councillor Durkee?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I completely agree with that. I think I mentioned it in the last meeting that with a report, the urgency of this and the benefits, and just keep in mind that a lot of the money that we will be contributing will be staying locally, because it's going towards events that will be held in Yarmouth and Yarmouth County, the town of Yarmouth and Yarmouth County and Argyle. So, so it will benefit the local community. But yes, I would agree.
Was there any further comment? Oh, I'm sorry, Ken. Go ahead, Deputy Warden.
It says here, the confirmation of funding support amount of $10,000. Is that just one request for the municipality district of Yarmouth, or is that a request of YASTA? Because if it's a request of YASTA, that figure would drop drastically to $2,500, correct?
That would be Modi's share. There is a budget, there's a budget. So ACOA, Tourism Nova Scotia, Communities, Culture and Heritage, municipal partners, so that's 110,000, we're being asked for 10. And other cash sponsorship, and then YASTA themselves is going to put $70,000 in over 2 years.
So they're double dipping through us, because we pay for YASTA, and now they're asking us to pay again.
Well, but it's not a complete double dip, because YASTA is also funded through MPLAC, which is private sector
I disagree,
dollars.
it's a double dip through our municipal taxpayers. That's what I'm getting at. I have no problem with this, I just don't like being double billed. I wished it would have come through YASTA. This is a request through YASTA is what I wish.
It is a request from YASTA.
For the budget, yes. Like through, we have a tourism budget in our line items.
And it's a tourism request from YASTA, but it's for a future fiscal year.
Additional funding for this one event.
I must be cantankerous today, because to me, it's a double dip, and
Okay, so the consensus, go ahead, Councillor.
Well, now John's got me thinking. So is this a grant request, or is this just kind of a future request that we're going to include in YASTA's budget next year?
It's a grant request under our tourism program that YASTA is also contributing funds towards.
Okay.
So we contribute to YASTA through our partnership, and that's where the deputy warden is coming from.
So then the consensus of council is to move forward with this and bring it to the recommendation to our February 27th meeting to be ratified and so on. Okay. You guys spend money too easy. Yeah. Yeah.
You gotta spend it to make it.
Woo, spoken like a true fisher.
Otherwise than that, Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
everything else
yes,
can
yeah.
be referred. Yep.
Yes, all other items on the grant request refer to the budget meetings. Okay. 8.4, Remo Executive Committee, you have that, and I think there's a date set, is there not? I so much.
Yep, so Mr. Chairman, I can just jump in while you're
Yes.
taking a peek. So under the new REMO structure, we just have to officially appoint the representatives to REMO, and the intermunicipal agreement calls for 2 from council, one being the mayor or warden, and then another from council. So we had appointees to our joint EMO, but now we have REMO, so we just have to make this official. We have a meeting on the books, so we need a recommendation from committee of the whole to council on who will join the warden on our regional emergency management organization. Two only.
Yeah.
Yep.
It was John, I, and yourself, the 3. And I don't know who was alternate or whatever.
And there's no provision for alternates.
On this one this time. So I'll volunteer.
I think you were voluntold, Mr. Warden.
So we need somebody else who wishes to sit on that board. Now,
So we only need one more.
talk between the two of you. I want to see if, I won't say fight it out, but argue it out.
I'm pretty easy going, I'll let John carry on. I trust in him.
I am going to put something out there for you all to consider. So because this is a new organization and we are going to be front-loaded heavy with a lot of work, a lot of training, a lot of meetings in the next year to get reorganized and get set up and get running. So just when you're considering who will represent them, we will need our people at the table regularly and probably fairly often over the next 12 months.
You would be better suited for that than me.
Well,
Well, I can't guarantee my times,
The way I've been looking at it,
unfortunately.
I'll do it. Don't get me, I'll do it, I just don't want to step on any toes, number one. However, my medical issue that I've had, I'm not sure what that's going to entail here in the next.
If we find, Deputy Warden, that there's complications or whatever arise, the council can
Council
then
can change,
reappoint
yep.
somebody else.
More than happy to step in at that point, John.
All right, then I would accept
Okay,
recommendation.
so you'll get that off to them.
yes, but it
And
will be a
our-
recommendation, this has to be a recommendation to council, and we'll have to ratify it on the
Yes.
26th. Okay.
Yeah, in our meeting, I know I've put it in here.
19th of March. No,
No.
February. Yeah,
Yeah, I have it, yeah.
We're
That's a
just gonna go.
Wednesday
we're just going to do it.
So, on the
at 4.
John will go. Yep.
Yeah. At 4. At 4 o'clock, that's what I have.
Yep.
I'll send you the information.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's going to be at the center.
Our ECC on Pleasant Street.
Yes, on Pleasant Street. Okay, thank you very much. That'll be ratified then, like you say, on the 27th. I'm not sure on this 8.5 Mariner Center Strategy Process, Steering Committee Representation.
So, Mr. Chairman, if you recall, all of councils collectively participated in creating a document that was the overall vision for the Mariner Center. We're ready now to take that and create a strategy for the Mariner Center. And so what Jeff and Alain and I are recommending to the councils is that each council appoint 2 people to sit on a steering committee to work through that process, who would then bring back a strategy to be recommended to be approved by the 2 owners and the investor in the Mariner Center, which would be what the board would then implement and come to fruition. It's just to do a body of work like that with 23 elected officials, you can imagine trying to get everybody together to do the work. So a steering committee is a good way to get the work done and bring back a recommended document for approval to the councils.
Councillor Christian?
Now, would this include Daniel, where he's a member of the board?
So my recommendation would be that we would appoint Daniel as one of our 2. It just makes sense.
I would volunteer to do the other one.
That's good. So Daniel and Councillor Cushion will be our representatives on that?
So it's an ad hoc committee, so it's for a particular body of work, and when that work is done, then that committee is done.
Oh,
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. That's all. Now, does that, where that's just on an ad hoc committee, we don't have to ratify that or anything? It's just 2 of them? Okay. Okay, the one you've all been waiting for, 8.6. This big, long word, consolidation. What is the wishes of council? Go ahead, Councillor.
Well, as everybody's aware, we've had engagement with the province, provincial officials. Our 3 councils have talked about it to an extent. It's a complex issue, first of all, and there's no clear guarantee on what the future holds in any set of circumstances. But generally speaking, what we're doing now is 3 municipal units, and our collaboration is not working for the region. When I'm talking about the 3 municipal units, I'm talking about Municipality District of Yarmouth, Town of Yarmouth, and Municipality District of Argyll. And I think we're all councillors that that I've been involved with, and that's everybody, all the councillors are well-meaning, elected for the right reasons, are trying their best. But at the end of the day, 3 separate units have 3 different, understandably, visions of where they want to go as a group, and certainly I think our council individually has a pretty common vision of what we'd like to have happen in the region as much as possible, and the town has perhaps slightly different vision, but it's theirs. It is Argyle's. So really, what you've got is you've got 3 well-meaning councils, but we're all thinking that we're going in the same direction at times, and then we veer off course, and we all do that. So, but that's a function not of the people, because all the people are good in the organizations. It's just a function of the governance structure, and that I don't think we've worked hard at it. We have, I think, 27 municipal agreements, which take untold time and cost money of staff. We have 3 CAOs, 3 administrative buildings, all the different policies. So moving forward, I think there is merit in considering consolidation. So what I think we should do, because there will need to be, we need to decide whether or not we want to move forward with this before the next election. So I'm going to propose that this be put on the agenda for our February regular meeting, and that the motion will essentially be that the municipality of the District of Yarmouth go forward with consolidation with 1 or more of those 3 partners that I have I've outlined. So that will be the question. So if folks are only thinking it will work with 3, they may or may not choose to vote against the motion. I think either consolidating, I think it's better if all 3 units consolidate. I think we're better together. But I think if we could consolidate with even one of the other units, it would move the ball forward. And I think that would be a positive thing, because it's not only the cost of running 3 municipalities separately, it's the inefficiency in decision making. I think that getting big projects done, move forward, like the airport, the Mariners Center, the ferry terminal, will be very, very difficult unless consolidation takes place. And I think those are the big things people are looking forward to, and I think those are the big things that are necessary to make our community grow, thrive, and have our young people stay here, because we haven't been particularly successful at that. Our population is declining. I think there's a lot of merit in having all 3 together in terms of having our Acadian population better served and working with us, and also, which we do have a large number in the municipality district of Yarmouth and in town of Yarmouth, and also our First Nations populations. So African Nova Scotians as well. So in any event, I think we've got a lot more synergy together. I think it's definitely the way forward. And again, maybe we'll end up like a smaller version of Moncton, which is growing. And I'm hopeful for that future. So I'll be bringing that motion forward in a couple weeks' time. And we'll have our deliberations at that time. And certainly, I'm looking forward to feedback from folks around the municipality. I've been talking to a number of people, and I think it's time. Thank you.
Councillor Durkee, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. I appreciate everything that that Trevor has mentioned, and I can confidently say that I'm in agreement that together we're better. I will also say that it's not an easy decision. There are factors that we do have to consider. We do have to consider what's best for our residents, obviously first and foremost. But when you look at the size of our district, and you look at the size of Yarmouth as the map that Greg just gave to us, Yarmouth is really little with the rest of us surrounding it. And you look at the total population of all 3 units being about 24,000, the more the merrier, and with bigger numbers, it makes us stronger. That being said, what I have learned that in terms of taxes, that there would be rural, suburban, and urban taxes, and my understanding is that's our decision as to what guiding principles that we choose would go into forming this consolidated region. Also, again, I have to say that with the One Nova Scotia report, it's now or never, and it's really our time to make changes in moving not just the province forward, but our whole region forward. We're not that big. We're down at the end of the province. We have some big decisions to make as to how we can improve what we have to make things better. And so, and also our agreements, we have a lot of agreements, and my big concern is that if we can't make decisions on some of the things we've already discussed, and these agreements come up, what's going to happen with all those agreements? And the shared services are really important, because I don't think any one of us could do this alone. We need the town needs us. So I think it's really important that we consider moving forward with this.
Thank you. Councillor Cushion, you have the floor.
Thank you. Councillor Cunningham and Councillor Durkee. I'm not against amalgamate or consolidation, they want to call it, but I'm not interested in hearing pretty pictures painted of how wonderful it's going to be. I'm more interested in collecting the information, which we have been doing for the last little while, and taking that information to our people who vote for us, try to explain it to them, get them to ask questions so they will understand what it's all about, number one. Number two, it was mentioned that either we do it with 2 or we do it with 3 units. Personally, I believe 3 units is the way to go. The municipality of Argyle have a great Acadian population that would be wonderful for us to include into the whole consolidation effort. And as Councillor Cunningham mentioned, we could be something like another mountain with all the diverse population that we have and whatnot, which would be good. But there is a lot of information that people who vote for us, they have to be let known what we're thinking about doing. If they have questions, they should be able to ask us. We should be able to have a chance to try to answer them if we can. If we can't answer them, then we have to try to get an answer for them. Once we go through that process, I have no problem sitting down and making a hard decision on whether we do or we don't. I have no problem with doing that. But before I do something like that, I certainly want the public to know, especially the people who voted me in, they trust me to try to make the right decision. In doing that, I'm going to trust them to give me the information that I need to make that right decision. So that's where I stand for now. So,
Yep. Was there any? Councillor Allen, you have the floor.
I'm going to throw my 2 cents in here, I guess. I guess this is evolution. It happens with everything. I'm not sure where I stand on it. When I first became a councillor 3 years ago, I definitely was not for this. But I see things differently now on some levels. I'm very sad to hear that it's a now or never, as Councillor Durkee stated, because I don't believe there's a now or never. I believe this can be done now, or it can be done in the future. I don't believe there's a never. I'm also sorry to hear you saying that we need the town and the town needs us, because it's not just us in the town. I know obviously, we've all seen Warden Danny is none of this is for your benefit. This is an ongoing discussion between us. I want to make sure you understand that. This isn't a butter-up. I agree 100% that we need to represent our region. We need to represent it as Acadian. We need to represent it as African Nova Scotian. We need to represent it with our Acadia First Nations. How we get there, it's going to be a process. And I don't know if I'll be here to be part of it or not. You're going to bring up a motion, and it'll be up to me to vote on it. And I am only one vote. So I've got a lot of thinking to do. It's tough going to the public. I understand Councillor Cushing's. I'd like to think that they put us here to value our decisions, and sometimes we have to make tough ones. So I'm kind of looking forward to seeing where this actually goes. It's kind of, it's an adventure to me, and I hope, you know, it at some point will be an adventure to all of our constituents. Like, I'd like to see us better. I don't know if this is the way to make us better or not, and that'll take some thought, but all I can say is I will be doing some thinking. So, thank you.
Councillor LeBlanc?
I don't think I was for amalgamation at first. Now I'm tending more to go with amalgamation. I was proud of my council, and I'll look at Warden Danny here while I'm saying this. I was proud of my council when they mentioned how many Acadians there were in the municipality of Yarmouth, and that it's about time that we recognize that, they said, you know. I never mentioned the Acadians first, and but it didn't surprise me that that was mentioned, but I was happy, you know, that my roots were considered as part of this council, the discussion. I was very proud of that. In saying that, when people ask me where I'm from, I'll always say I'm from Wedgeport. I live in South Ohio. There's a reason for that, because I am very proud of being an Acadian, you know. Now, in going back to amalgamation or consolidation, I don't think I could vote yes if Argyle doesn't want to go in. I truly, it has to be 3 for me. It has to be 3. But as far, Danny, as far as the culture of the Acadians, and I hope for any minority group that will be in this consolidation, I will fight for my culture as hard as I can here. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Durkee.
I just want to clarify, thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, the One Nova Scotia report is the Now or Never report. That's where I was referring to. So it wasn't about specifically our consolidation, as that's what it was called. But thank you for pointing that out, because I wouldn't want people to think that that's what I was thinking. And second, when I said we need the town and the town needs us, I'm referring to both municipalities, absolutely. Again, because that's what I was talking about. But just to clarify, yes, Argyle is really important to us. It holds culture that's unique. And again, I also agree with Councillor LeBlanc that we love having that culture. We love being a part of it. We want to share it. And I think, you know, when anybody comes here, we use that to our advantage to say, look how unique we really are at this end of the province. So again, I just want to reiterate, yes, the town is our regional hub. That is our hub. We have 2 rural communities, and there are differences in those communities. And I think for all of us, if we're going to go on this together, we still have to recognize some of the differences between all 3 of the units that are discussing this, and we celebrate those.
Deputy Warden, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I guess I have a question through you to the Madam CAO in regards to the legislation. Say, for example, if this council decided we wanted to move forward with this, and the province would have to write up legislation, at what point do we put in concerns that I may have, like, say, for example, and others have expressed here already, has to be all 3 municipal units. Taxation, area rate taxation. When is that written into the legislation?
So if council was to move forward on this, the decision should be accompanied by a written resolution with all the whereases and the caveats in your request to the minister, which is essentially what you would do. If you approved a motion, you'd write a letter and you would request Minister Porter draft legislation consolidating the municipal units in Yarmouth County. And your caveats would be in that letter that you would, for Modi, a caveat to the request is, and whatever your caveats are. The piece about having them in legislation as opposed to the guiding principles is the authority that comes with them if they're in legislation. Guiding principles are your philosophies, your values, but pieces that are in the legislation come with the authority of the legislation.
Absolutely, because it's not going to be as simple as making an motion that we should consolidate or amalgamate with one or another unit. It should say, like, whereas, like, for me, a big concern about all this, and this is the reason for committee of the whole, is number one, I've stated this many times, I would prefer and would like, and most generally hear, that all 3 units move forward. The second thing is regards to taxation, area rate taxation. Obviously, there's different areas. The municipality district of Yarmouth, for example, we have streetlights, whereas the municipality Argyle does not. So does that mean that they all, service-based taxation is basically what I'm saying. We don't pay for 99% of our roads in the municipality yet, whereas the town of Yarmouth does. In my opinion, that should be taxed on a taxation rate, or an area rate. Septic and water, or sewer and water. Some areas of the municipality have it, some don't. Therefore, taxation should be an area or a service applied to that area. And for me, a big thing is representation by population. Very, very big. Municipality District of Yarmouth has 9,500, I believe. Don't quote me on these numbers. The town of Yarmouth has 6,500 roughly. Argyle roughly has 8,000, I believe. Population, representation by population, that is something out of the small media release that was put out, that was one of the big things that I kept hearing. I also realize that the Acadian culture, a lot of people don't realize, my district, District 1, we have over half of the property owners that I can see is Acadian descent. Let's say, for example, Brazil Lake. That's basically considered Lower Wedgeport. The Golden Forest area, Pimlico. There is a lot of French buried all through at least my district, and I hear their concerns. I have a unique perspective of a lot of people live in different areas, but they come out in my area for the summertime to enjoy themselves. They're all taxpayers out in my district because they own properties along the lakes and stuff, and they enjoy themselves. So for me, this for me to accept a motion, it would have to be crafted as whereas, as the CAO put, whereas the municipality of District of Yarmouth would move forward as all 3 units. It has to be written in the legislation that the province writes up, because once we say, yes, we're going, and it's passed, we better make sure then and there is when we have our concerns and issues
There's
brought
no
up.
stepping away once you
There's
say
no,
you are.
once we go forward, there's no stepping away. So we want to make sure that this motion is right. So like I said, for me personally, all 3 municipal units, representation by population, and taxation has to be addressed. There's so many other things, but for me, those are the 3 core values. I've stated that before. For me, the 3 core things that I would have to see. Have to see. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I think my 5 minutes is up.
I just want to remind council that we have another presentation, private presentation at 1 o'clock, so if Councillor Cushing, no, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, again, I'm gonna address this. Number one, I respect the residents who voted me to represent them. And I believe they would respect me to bring them such an important change that will affect the municipality of Yarmouth forever. As for the Mariner Center, we keep harping about the terminal, the airport, those things will be solved, whether we're amalgamated or not. It may take longer to do, but they will be solved. Now, to the subject of John, the subject that John brings up is, I believe, is worthy for our council to sit down and draft caveats that our municipality would want to see if we proceed. There's so many unanswered questions here yet, and I've been told that we spent hours and hours and hours on it. Well, this is forever, and if we're going to do something forever, then I really, really want to know what we're doing.
Yes.
Yeah, and I mean, there is, the motion will be difficult, and I appreciate Councillor Cunningham or Deputy Warden Cunningham's comments. Having said that, we know how the process went with Windsor West Hants, and there were not, to my understanding, a lot of caveats, a lot of pieces of legislation around all those pieces. The guiding principle was that the area rates would stay the same, and that over time we would move to sort of rates for services. So if you're in a high service area, you'd maybe pay a little bit more for this and that. If you've got no service at all, then you'd maybe pay a little bit lower rate. But at the end of the day, as far as taxation goes, each of the units has got revenues. They're covering off all those revenues by legislation. They also have expenses. They're covering off all those expenses by legislation through revenues. So none of us have any deficits. Now we have some infrastructure and so forth that we're paying for over time. And in regard to what West Hants and Windsor's done is essentially those levels of indebtedness are paid off by the constituents that have them now. So those types of things, there's an understanding there. It will be very, very difficult to make a motion that covers off all of those things with absolute certainty. So I'll just say that. I think we'll need to keep the motion relatively simple and with the mind of moving forward, but not tying future councils' hands, because people that are elected next time round, that may or may not be us, 4 years henceforth, all those types of things, they'll have to ultimately make some of those decisions. I don't think we're going to have big changes in rates of taxation. There may be some changes over time, but having said that, there's always going to be the ability to say this is unknown, that's unknown, because we know moving forward there are going to be some unknowns. if we stay status quo, there's some unknowns, right? We don't know whether or not we're going to get all these important projects done. I think the better bet is with consolidation.
Thank you. Councillor Allen, you have the floor.
Actually, I just had a quick question. Back in regards, it kind of goes to both Councillor Cunningham's, to you, our CAO. When the motion is made, do we have to have the caveats in that motion at that point for legislation? Or would that just be a motion to move us forward and then we start setting our caveats?
Yeah, Dave.
If I was an elected official and there were caveats tied to decision-making, I'd want them included in the resolution. What I can do is draft some language for council to consider when Councillor Cunningham puts the motion on the floor at council. I can draft some language that you can use in your debate.
Was there any other comments you wish to make? No. Okay, I guess it's my turn. And no, you've heard me speak before pertaining to this one item. I believe this will be happening within Yarmouth County. The only issue that I have right now is the time frame. The 3 municipal units, whether you're for it or you're against it, have been given basically a deadline, the end of February or the first week of March. And as the representative for my constituents, I find that a very hard item to deal with at this time. We as councillors have a lot of decisions to make and so on. And you've brought them up, Mariner Center, the airport, the ferry terminal, plus all of the items we want to do within our own municipal unit at this time. Johns Cove, Cape for Shoe, the Hebron Industrial Park. You know, there's a lot of items that we want to do within the municipality, possibly a boardwalk, eventually along Milo, and so on. And I realize all those things can be dealt with after you're consolidated, because now you're one unit, whether you're 2 units or you're 3 units, but you'll be a unit. And you can move forward. I realize the taxation is an issue, and we look at it right now, what we have in the municipality. And if you went out and asked any one of our commercial operators, any one of our residents, what do they feel on our rates, you're going to have a few that say, yeah, I think I'm paying too much. But I don't believe that any of our residents, both commercial or residential, would say, no, you're out of bounds. You're way off. The only thing I can see is, right now, the picture that I see is, after we combine, that there is commercial areas within Argyle, big commercial areas within Argyle. You just take within Tuscot Sales, you have Carl's Store, you have a lot of other little businesses and so on within the municipality of Yarmouth, right along Route 1, all the way up through Dayton Hebron, a lot of businesses there. Well, if I was a commercial operator in the town of Yarmouth, whoa, man, what's going on here? I'm paying $4, and out in the municipality, they're paying $2, and I'm not sure what they pay in Argyle, but up through Hebron, Dayton, they have water and sewer, same as what they have in the town. Why aren't they paying more? And it's going to be the same for within Argyle. They have commercial areas that have wastewater. I'm not sure about the water side, but they have wastewater. They have an industrial park. There's going to be questions from your commercial operators, like how come out there, and I know you can say urban, suburban, and all that, but if you're commercial here, you're commercial there. But as we are right now, we're 3 municipal units. So if you don't think taxation, residential-wise, you probably aren't going to have any issues. But commercial-wise, I can see it. I can see that coming forward. Can we deal with that? I believe we can. But that's one of the items that I see that's just one of the small items. As for being able to get through the airport, Mariner Center and all that, I believe we can do that as we are right now, moving forward. But as I said, my biggest concern is I am being given a deadline, and I don't like that. I don't think that's right to us as councillors, as municipal units, and I don't think my residents deserve to be, and I'm going to use the word bullied, into having to make a decision that may affect them either good or bad. So as it stands right now, I am for consolidation, but I am not for consolidation under those rules. So I'll tell you right up front, Councillor Cunningham, as it stands right here, right now, my dad told me 25 years ago, he said, you vote with your gut. And my gut's telling me right now, no. So I'm telling you right now, unless there's some major change between here and then, unless it's the 3 units, I'm not interested. I'm not interested. And that's my take on it. So if there's anybody that wishes to have a rebuttal, you're open to. Go ahead, Councillor.
Mr. Warden, and certainly part of the reason that the motion has to come forward is that tight timeline.
Yes. Yes,
So
it is.
that we've been presented with. And, you know, if it's not ultimately, if the motion is not ultimately successful, you know, we may be able to pick this up later on, but maybe not too. So I think that would be an opportunity missed, even though we are under that pressure. Everybody would like to have more time and like to have more ability to hear, you know, even more. But at the same time, I think the urgency to do something is there as well. And I'd like to thank all the councillors, including the warden, for a respectful conversation. We'll all hold our opinions, formulate our opinions, you know, for that vote. And I know it is time limited. That's a factor. There's no doubt about that as well. So ultimately, that's a responsibility that we're all given. And the conversation, dialogue, discourse among us has been very, very good, as it has been with the town councillors and the councillors from the municipality of the District of Yarmouth. So we've got a decision. We'll hear the facts and we'll make a decision and move forward after that in the best and most appropriate way, as we always do, together.
Yeah. There's a point here. This October, we're having a municipal election. You can't tell me that if into 2 years into our election, our mandate, if the 3 units have decided, yes, it's better to go forward, if you approach municipal affairs, that they would say, no, we're going to wait. No, you could have an election within a year, because that is what Hants and Windsor are doing right now. They're going to have a longer term. They're going to have their 4 years plus from March till October. So 4.5 years.
But I would like to clarify, Mr. Warden, that it was never said that if we don't go now, we can never go. It was
Yeah.
said, if we want to go, there's a narrow window to doing it under this administration
administration
because
right
of our elections.
Yeah, yeah. So, and I think eventually it will happen, but I just don't like being bullied. On that note, councillors, if there's no further business at this time, I'd like to have a recess, and we have another presentation to hear and so on, and we're going in there.